All right, I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara School Board of Education for Tuesday, May 27th, 2014. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cash.
Please stand. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas noches. Si alguien desea escuchar la traducción de esta junta, pueden hacerlo. Tenemos aparatos disponibles aquí por estas puertas dobles. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And we do have headsets available for the hearing impaired if you ask at the side table here with staff. Dr. Cash, item C5, introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Sadly, I'd like to start this meeting with a moment of silence as we remember the students who lost their lives on Friday night in the Isla Vista tragedy. Please join me. Thank you. This tragedy obviously affected our entire community and nation, and together I'm confident that we'll get through this. Last night, a message was sent out to all parents advising them to contact their school principal if their student needed support, and today we had counseling support available at our school sites. We're very fortunate we had UCSB and members of the Santa Barbara County Psychological Association that stepped forward with support, along with our incredibly generous and fantastic counseling and psychological services staff. We have some great resources in our community, and I'm encouraging everyone who needs help to go to sbcpa.org for information on how individuals and communities move forward after an act of violence. On to some good news. Last week, in partnership with the state organization and CSEA Local Chapter 37, several of our administrators participated in a one-on-one job shadowing of classified employees. It was part of CSEA's Appreciating Classified Employees program, or their ACE program. We were one of only 10 school districts across the state that were invited to participate this year. For 1 or 2 hours, our administrators had a hands-on shadow experience with our district's painter, custodians, gardeners, food service, maintenance, instructional assistants, and library techs. Then at noon, participants gathered here at the district office to share information gained in the process, and I'd have to say everybody agreed it was a very positive experience. And we did receive from CSEA this wonderful plaque, which will hang out in our front of our office, that recognizes our participation in this. And on a personal note, I have to say, I had a great time. I was able to serve chicken Caesar salad to about 300 students at Adelante and Franklin, and it was a blast. What was really impressive was just how that group worked as a team. How everyone knew what their job was, and they did everything they could to get the food done, prepared, and out to the kids in a very quick time. It was really wonderful. Enjoyed that quite a bit. And from everyone else, I even heard that Lito Garcia, our principal at Santa Barbara Junior High School, climbed a ladder, 2 ladders, and he used an app on his iPhone for a flashlight when it was needed to look for something. So it was a great experience, and it's one, whether we're participating in the ACE program or not, the feedback I got indicated this is something we're going to do every year. And we think that, in talking to Paul Rooney, that we might want to flip it and have our classified employees follow our administrators 1 year as well, so they can job shadow us and see what our work is like. All in all, it was just a tremendous experience. I want to thank Paul Rooney and our entire CSEA team for that opportunity. So tonight, we also have the honor to recognizing employees for their many years of service to our school district. At a retiree tea, I was able to announce we had 52 employees retiring, representing over 1,152 years of service to the district. That's an incredible amount of history, knowledge, dedication, and service to kids in the Santa Barbara and Goleta areas. And as I shared with our staff at that retirement tea, you know, we know what we're losing. We're losing an incredibly dedicated staff. We don't know who's going to walk in the door and replace them. We certainly can only hope that we'll be hiring employees that replace them that will in turn give the same level of service and dedication to our community that these people had. But tonight we're going to honor our veterans, our super veterans. And we'll start with, well, I think veterans is a good term to use. 30 years of service. Our first honoree is Michael Acton from Washington Elementary School. You want him to speak now? Okay. Kathleen Dubach from Santa Barbara Junior High School. Eileen Gerke from Santa Barbara Junior High School. David Holmes from San Marcos High School. Susan Kipp from San Marcos High School. Joanne Knight from Goleta Valley Junior High School. Eduardo Mera from La Cumbre Junior High School. Patty Pimentel from the district office. Jorge Rocha from Adams Elementary. Joanne Thompson from Dos Pueblos High School. Lane Wheeler from Adams Elementary. Raul Ibarra from Santa Barbara High School. So how about a big round of applause? These are our 30 years of service employees in our district. Thank you very much. So next we're going to go on up to 35 years of service. And from San Marcos High School, Jana Dabo Roberts. Katie Donnelly from Peabody Charter. Mary Lou Diaz from McKinley Elementary. Margaret Holbrook from the WIN program. Lisa Kuhn from Adams Elementary. Boy, Margaret, it just seems like yesterday. Wow. So let's another big round of applause for our employees that have given 35 years of service to children in our community. And we have one more. With 40 years of service, I would ask that Jacqueline Pruitt from Cleveland Elementary please come forward. Let's big round of applause. 40 years for kids in Santa Barbara. Those 18 individuals have provided 575 years of service to the children in our community. And I know that the board has a few words they'd like to say, but before they do, I want to again thank you and acknowledge the dedication that you have given to our community. You've ensured that there is a bright future in Santa Barbara by each and every day giving kids what they need in order to be successful. So thank you very much, board members.
Thank you. Wow. Super impressive. I'm always blown away. And I think this might be like the largest number of 30-year pins I've seen in a long time. Looking forward to that number being at 35. 5 more years, guys. Keep it up. Although I've seen already, of course, a few of you will miss as you're retiring. But the service that you give to our kids has been tremendous. You have devoted so much time to them. We appreciate those of you who are leaving. We appreciate those of you who are staying. You just do an amazing work. Thank you. And I don't know if other board members, I mean, there were certainly some faces out there, at my own kids' schools, at La Cumbra, at Adams, Mr. Wheeler and Ms. Keene. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to? I know a lot of these people probably had your students. Yeah.
Or were there when we went to school. Thank you.
Oh, burn, Ms. Limon.
That's a good thing. They get to see how their students develop.
Ms. Eidelson.
Thank you so much for so many years, and it's touched so many lives. I always feel the teachers touch the future, and that's so true here. Thank you.
Madam President, one other brief announcement. I just want to remind everybody that next week, in case it might have slipped your mind, we're graduating and promoting. And our graduation and promotion schedule is at the back. Our high school graduation ceremonies start off Wednesday, June 4th, where La Cuesta and Alta Vista at the Santa Barbara Sunken Gardens will begin their ceremony. And then Thursday, we have Dos Pueblos High School at 4, San Marcos at 5, and Santa Barbara High School at 6. Our junior high promotion ceremonies begin on June 5th at 9:30 a.m. at Goleta Valley Junior High School, La Cumbra Junior High, Santa Barbara Junior High at 10 o'clock, and then La Colina Junior High at 10:15 on Thursday, June 5th. And with that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Board members, comments and correspondence. All right, we will move on to the announcement of closed session action. We discussed 4 items in closed session. Only one has action out of it, and that was item B3, the Casey waiver for graduation for students with disabilities. It was moved by Dr. Paz and seconded by Mr. Herron to approve the Casey waivers for 6 students that were listed in the closed session backup material. That passed 4-0 with Ms. Limon absent. All right, we will now move on to public comment. Mr. Herron.
Thank you. I'll read off 3 names and see if you can be ready. Michael Acton, followed by Olga Zormeno, followed by Mario Rodriguez. And you have 3 minutes, and I'll try to remember to warn you about 30 seconds to go.
Okay, my name is Michael Acton, and I just got my 30-year pin, and I just have a couple of things I would like to share. When I started in 1984, I was handed a piece of chalk and told to go for it. And the next year, I got a set of encyclopedias. And I was really jazzed about that. And that was where all the learning that could take place had to come from what was housed in the classroom. And probably most of you went through the same experience. And now, I have this, which connects me to the world and beyond, and it's just phenomenal. I feel so proud and happy and honored to be in a place in human history to span this. This is amazing. I span this. And it's just so exciting for me to be there and be with the kids. And I was thinking, I watched a bit of the ceremony on the tragedy that took place, and one of the things that I kept hearing, a common thread I kept hearing was reach out to people, tell them you love them, tell them how much they've been a part of your lives, include them, be inclusive, all of that. And I would just like to say that many people put their efforts into me along the years as well, to make me who I am today and the teacher I am today. And the board, not you personally over the years, but as a board have gotten training for me, done whatever you could to make teaching the powerful profession that it is for me. And I just wanted to thank you all and our community out there for how great it is to be a teacher here and to just be a teacher. It has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. Some of it's not been so wonderful, but for the most part. So thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Olga Zarmeno.
Good evening. members of the board, and administrators. My name is Olga Cermeño. I'm president of the United Parents Padres Unidos, and I'm back again, this time to urge you to assign a new director for the English learners and parent engagement. We know that giving the parents their information in their language is an essential tool, but they also need to be engaged in order to understand how the school system works. We need them to become part of their children's education. We are dealing with parents who come from a different country, where the educational system is different and their involvement is not expected. In this educational system, parents are partners in the education of their children. If we continue to leave this to the school principals, it will not happen. Not all of them are culturally sensitive to the needs of their school population. Plus, principals have very busy schedules, and often parent engagement falls through the cracks. The assistant superintendents also already have a lot on their plates. United Parents Padres Unidos understands the needs of their parents, and they need to be educated on this school system. They need to be advocates for their children. We need the school board to support their parents and have an administrator responsible for parent engagement. As parents, as you know, parents are the key in their children's education. Members of the board, I know that each of you want nothing but the best for each child in this school district, yet it is not happening. We have a big achievement gap. We already have great teachers, as we just recognize a few of them. We have the students, and we are missing something. What are we missing? We know it's the parents. So I am here to ask that the school board assign a director for English learners and parent engagement. This comes from my heart, and I want you to listen to this. A great woman once said that it is by doing little things that we make a difference. I believe that this is a little thing that will make a difference in many. Members of the board, I know that each of you are here for a reason. I know that I'm here for a reason, and it's not easy. I don't like to speak in public.
20 seconds.
But I know that this is the right time, and I think that we can do it together. So let's make this happen. Thank you.
Mario Rodriguez, followed by Jennifer Brown-Kai Tepper.
Good evening, members of the board and public. My name is Mario Rodriguez. I am a parent in the school district, and I come to you in support for the Padres Unidos recommendation of the LCAP. In particular, I refer to the Padres Unidos recommendation for a director of English learner services and parent engagement. We applaud the district's draft, of the LCAP proposal to create the Director of English Learner Services, but we feel that this new position absolutely needs to also be responsible for parents' engagement services. One of the most important statewide LCFF priorities is parent involvement. Parent involvement, but we see very little tangible evidence for leadership, planning, and oversight in this current LCAP draft plan. Without that, as an important and visible part of the director's responsibility, we can hardly expect more than business as usual to help schools move towards effective parent engagement practices across the school district. With the LCAP plan calling for a 10% increase per year in parent involvement in the decision-making process, this may look very good on paper, but how is that going to happen on the grounds, we ask? Several years ago, a state released its parent engagement framework, a tool for California school district that is set of rubrics that goes beyond the basic levels of implementation and parent involvement and provides guidance towards progressive and innovative practices that really move the needle in parent engagement. Unfortunately, Assistant superintendents have too much on their plates and are not able to address parent involvement effectively. The principals are accustomed to the more basic implementation and not the progressive, innovative practices called for by this rubrics and parent engagement framework. In closing, we urge the district to please include the parents' engagement services in major responsibilities and of the proposed new position of the Directors of English Learner Services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jennifer Brown and Kai Tepper, followed by Anita Campione, followed by Rosia Jimenez.
It's going to take us a while to get up here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and administration. My name is Jen Brown, and I'm a parent of an elementary school in an elementary student in the district. On May 9th, 2014, over 80 leaders from across our community came together in an unprecedented gathering to advance arts education in our public schools. The meeting was co-hosted by the Santa Barbara County Arts Commission, the Santa Barbara Education Foundation, the Arts Fund, and the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation. This was the inaugural meeting of what we are here to introduce tonight, the new Santa Barbara County Alliance for Arts Education. We are parents, educators, community leaders, nonprofits, business people, foundations, public servants, and entrepreneurs who are committed to the district's vision statement of excellence in public education, every child, every chance, every day. We stand here tonight united for a common goal. We believe that to provide consistent quality, access, and equity in public education in Santa Barbara, we must look carefully at how a comprehensive arts education curriculum can be designed and delivered. How can we work together to guarantee what all of our children need and deserve? Every art at every grade in every school. The Santa Barbara Unified School District made an excellent start in 2011 and 2012 by commissioning a thorough study of instructional arts offerings at all grade levels. The study confirmed that there was a lot to be proud of in the district when it came to arts education. There were models of in-school instruction, after-school enrichment, and some exceptional opportunities for exposure to world-class arts and culture programs. This array of arts offerings was made possible by a combination of district resources, parent fundraising, local philanthropy, nonprofit generosity, and volunteerism. However, the district study also made it clear that there was no consistency between grade level schools and art forms. The study revealed a pattern of great disparity in arts education offerings for our youngest students, running contrary to our shared vision of consistent quality, access, and equity across the district. 2 years later, the inequities and gaps at the elementary grades persist and are also present at the junior and senior high school levels. Something has to change. We have studied the current draft of the district's Local Control Accountability Plan for 2014 through 2017. We note the district's awareness of deficiencies in current arts education offerings, and we applaud the generally stated goals of increased student enrollment and participation in the visual and performing arts. We also note that the district plans to complete the Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Plan in year 1, but that no expenditures are allotted for same, nor are additional goals stated for subsequent years. As members of the community who are interested in the success of the arts in schools, we would like to see the district take a more proactive approach on these items. In order to accelerate the district's plans and to gain immediate benefits for current students, we respectfully propose the addition of a dedicated VAPA coordinator in Section 3, Actions, Services, and Expenditures. Our group, the Santa Barbara County Alliance for Arts Education, stands ready to engage with the district to ensure that access to community resources and multi-year funding is available for this essential position.
I'm going to ask for another couple minutes. They could individually have 42 minutes. So I appreciate the one speaker for 3 or 2 speakers. So
we do have a Spanish speaker as well. Now is the time to make bold choices. The district's long-term arts education vision is established. The LCAP provides a unique 3-year opportunity to make real progress towards its art education goals. Your commitment to move this forward and our commitment to offer supplemental funding removes many of the obstacles we have faced in the past. Let's create a new VAPA coordinator position now. Let's make good on our promise of more and better arts education opportunities for every child in Santa Barbara. To discuss this proposal further,
30 seconds more.
we invite you to contact Kai Tepper, who is our Executive Director at the Arts Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cash, if I do know we have a strategic plan on the agenda at some point in the near future. Can you give us an idea when that will be on the
I believe it's July 22nd.
July
It's a
22nd?
special board meeting.
That's the main strategic plan, but we were
Yes.
talking about
No,
possibly
I'm talking
looking
about
at the VAPA draft.
Oh, that's on the next board meeting.
Okay, the VAPA draft will be on the next board meeting. Okay. Anita Campione, followed by Rosia Jimenez.
Good evening, members of the school board and the general public. My name is Anita Montero Campion. I'm a member of Padres Unidos, and I am here as a grandmother to support the LCAP recommendations to the school board. I come to you as a member of the community to speak on behalf of underachieving students. Many of our underachieving students do not have resources at home. In many cases, parents only possess elementary education or none at all, limiting academic assistance at home. We need to offer support programs during the day, such as study centers and intervention centers. These should be equipped with highly qualified tutors who can spend time assisting with homework and challenging school material. Programs such as AOK have shown to be successful in tutoring and providing a safe space for youth. We need to expand our after-school tutoring and make it accessible in every school, elementary through high school. We want to see these measures included on the adopted final version of LCAP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rocio Jimenez.
Good evening, board members and administrators. My name is Rocio Jimenez. I'm a parent of the children in this school system, and I am here to support the LCAP recommendations of United Parents, Padres Unidos. One of our recommendations is that the director of the English learners served should also include parent engagement, planning, and oversight. I will give you a few reasons why. First, consider the LCAP goal of 10% annual growth in parenting involvement in decisions making. One of the ELAC mandates for the ELAC's parents leaders to advise on their school single plan. Having access to the school single plan in their language is just one of the tools to do that. But despite the current administrative decision of responsibilities, the translation of many of these single plans just did not happen. People have too many on their plates. A quick review of the district English website shows 18 single plans in English. The Spanish website has only 2 in Spanish, and those 2 were translated only because they were requests for use with the Padre Adelante classes at Santa Barbara Junior High and Monroe School. A director of EL service who also were to handle parent engagement will see the direct connection between translating the single plan and using these tools to effectively engage parents to create truly function in the ELACs. The central issue is the parents' engagement, and the translation are just the tools to help that to happen. In conclusion, this is only one of the examples of the value and importance of providing parent engagement support and oversight via a director of for EL services and parents' engagement. Parents asked for that at LCAP hearing on the 13th. We continue to ask for that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Herron. All right, with that, we'll move on to item D. This is the acceptance of donations, DA.
Move that be accepted with gratitude.
I'll second that.
Moved by Mr. Herron and seconded by Ms. Limon. All those in favor?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. All right, the consent agenda. Any items that board members need to pull? I will note that Dr. Cash talked about ceremonies, the graduation ceremonies next week. We are officially issuing diplomas tonight, approving the issuance of diplomas tonight for 1,554 high school students. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. This moves us to the action agenda. First up is board action on student discipline case number 2013-14, or say, 2013/14 is the normally way that we put it, 2013-14-24.
I'll move approval of the stipulated agreement in case number 2013-14-24.
Second.
All right, it was moved by Mr. Herron, seconded by Dr. Paz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. And then it's G2, petition for readmission of an expelled student in case number 2012-13-22. Can I get a motion?
Okay. I'll move for the re-entry from expulsion for case number 2012-13-22.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. Next up is G3. This is the approval of the 2014-2015 Insurance Committee Health and Welfare Plan recommendations. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We have both Dr. Christensen and Ms. Jete are prepared to make this presentation and answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening. Tonight, the district will present the Insurance Committee's recommendations to the board pertaining to health and welfare. Presenting this evening is our coordinator of classified personnel and also the chair of the Insurance Committee, Mr. Brian Tanguay.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Cash. Thank you, Dr. Christensen. Well, I have the privilege of coming and reporting to you on the Insurance Committee recommendations. Typically, this is where people want to shoot the messenger. Please don't. Please refrain. We actually have some good news this year. So I just want to take you through very quickly what we have done, the work we have done this year. So first of all, this is the committee's composition. So we have our broker, Alliant Employee Benefits, CSEA, Fiscal Services, Human Resources representatives, and representatives from SBTA. So we have all parties represented at the table. So how we got to where we are, January 28th, you approved a brokerage agreement with Alliant Employee Benefits, and we began meeting 3 days later, and we've had 6 meetings since. And so some of the things we were trying to do is get better educated on risk management, how rates are made, what our current market looks like, which we all have a pretty good sense of what that is, and mainly what we can do to impact our kind of status in this market, and also plan ahead for the implications of the Affordable Care Act. So we came up with 3 goals and objectives: beat medical inflation, which usually runs anywhere from 9 to 12%, maintain affordability and choice for employees, and limit the financial risk to the district and employees. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something you don't need to be reminded of, but in this market, we have no control over the cost of care. We have the infamous 800-pound gorilla, which is Cottage and Sansom. fine organizations, but they're the only game in town. So reality check number 2, which we spent quite a bit of time looking at how this works, is the cost of care, which we have no control over, times utilization, which we have some control over, generates higher costs. Very simple formula. When you break it all down, that's pretty much what it is. So reality check number 3, by taking actions in plan design, which we have control over, identification of chronic conditions, and employee education, which is really key, we can affect utilization. And our goal is to bend the utilization curve in our favor. In other words, to get the trend going downwards. There's big dollars at stake. So in 14-15, the district and employee contributions for health insurance premiums will be $14.2 million. So we're talking significant money. And now for the good news. I do have some good rate news for a change. This year's renewal through the CISC pool, which we are a member of, is 3.3% across all plans. We were very fortunate this year in that the Anthem HMO increased by 5.8%, and if you'll recall, last year it was a whopping 33%. So we did much better. The PPOs increased by 2.5%. So CISC's renewal methodology worked in the district's favor this year. They take a 3-year average of your claims, and we just happened to hit it perfectly, and we ended up with relatively low increases. We're more accustomed to seeing 12%, 15%, 20%. These are remarkable. And we beat medical inflation. So moving forward, the committee has recommended that we make some fairly significant changes to how we operate. Moving from the composite rate where everybody pays the same, whether you have an employee plus one, or a family, to tiered rates. We're recommending that the HMO plan be eliminated because it's not cost competitive in this market. We were lucky this year with a relatively low increase, but we can't guarantee that's going to happen every year. It's more likely because of the capitation negotiations that go on between carriers and Sansom and Cottage that those rates are going to continue to spike from time to time. We're recommending we add a high deductible health plan, which many companies and organizations are going to, along with the health savings account. We did get a dental insurance and vision insurance rate pass, so those rates stay the same. And the Kaiser HMO rates for our folks who live down in the Ventura area also stayed the same. These are the effective rates. I want to caution you that they are subject to employer and employee bargaining, so these are not the numbers that anyone is going to be paying. Bargaining will be going on between the district and SBTA and CSEA over how the cost is going to be shared. And finally, some coming attractions. One of the things we spent a lot of time on as a way to start to bend that curve in our favor is the possibility of starting an on-site health clinic somewhere in the district, or by partnering with maybe someone like Santa Barbara County who already has an on-site health clinic to provide basic care for our employees, to track chronic conditions and treat them. And it would reduce our utilization of Sansom and Cottage, which would help in bending that curve. It would be a cost to the district, but it would be free of charge to employees. It would be an amazing benefit if we were able to work out the logistics and the cost. And again, there is a possible partnership opportunity with the County of Santa Barbara in their existing on-site clinic. They actually operate 2 of them, one in Santa Barbara and one in North County in Santa Maria. And Alliant Employee Benefits played a very large role in implementing that clinic, and it's been very popular with their employees. So we're looking to see if we can mimic that, and we'll be studying that more in the months ahead. So that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Tangway. Dr. Paz.
So I just have more of a general question, maybe more of a comment. have we looked at, in terms of sort of increasing the health of our employees and sort of decreasing the utilization of services, incentives for our employees? One of the things that we benefit from, I as an employee of the County of Santa Barbara, is that they offer incentives for increasing your amount of vacation time that you accrue if you do alternative forms of transportation, one of which is walking to work, biking, but also taking public transportation. Kind of not talking about the third, but talking about the first two, which is, increase those healthy activities that some of our employees could engage in, and maybe looking at the cost of those and looking at some of the rate increases that we're looking at towards the future, but maybe mitigating some of those costs by obviously reducing our utilization.
Well, I think for the first time that this committee, and partly one of the reasons that we ended up with a brokerage agreement with Alliant Employee Benefits, is because we really want to institute, rather than just talk about it, but really institute a really robust wellness program that could include those kind of things, could include an on-site clinic. We know that's one of the things we have in our control. It's one of the few things in healthcare that we have in our control. And it's going to take a great effort to engage our employee population, but it's worth it. We know it's worth it, and it will pay off.
Any other questions or comments? I'll just say that this is actually the best rate report that I've seen in maybe ever since I've been on the board. So that's surprisingly good news. So thank you so much. Thanks to the entire committee.
I'm glad to
for
be the
the work that you've
bearer
done
of good news.
Yeah. I do need a motion on this. Ms. Idelson?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2014-2015 insurance committee recommendations.
All right, all those in favor?
Second.
Oh, sorry. I guess the second is important here. Thank you, Dr. Foz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passed unanimously. All right, we're moving on to our conference agenda. First up is H1, Food Service Update. Dr. Cash.
Well, I think we should continue with the wellness conversation. And first, we're going to hear from our illustrious Food Service Director, Nancy Weiss, who has, as you know, revolutionized eating in our schools. And having had the opportunity to be a food service worker this past week, I've eaten the food for years, but I got to see firsthand how it was prepared. I asked a lot of questions of the ingredients they used, where they purchased them, and I have to say, preempting Nancy, we're in good hands, so thank you, Nancy.
My pleasure. Madam President, esteemed board, it's good to see you all again. I have so much to talk about, it's going to be hard to rein me in. So the first thing I'd like to do is read to you something that's very dear to me. It's our nutritional philosophy for the department. It's what we use when we contract with bids and go out to bid for big groceries like Giordano's and Cisco. So, our Department of Food Services is extremely proud of the accomplishments we are making in our district kitchens, cafeterias, and dining rooms. We adhere to a new standard of food service and production that is entirely based on nutritional integrity and local procurement practices. Meals are prepared from scratch or minimally processed, and our emphasis is on whole foods and clean ingredients. Whenever possible, we exclude high fructose corn syrup, artificial dyes and colors, additives, hormones, antibiotics, irradiation, hydrogenated oils. We offer unflavored, non-fat, and 1% milk that are both hormone-free and antibiotic-free. Our bread, rice, and pasta are whole grain, and each meal is served with a selection of fresh fruits and vegetables that are grown within Santa Barbara County whenever possible. Many of our baked goods are sourced locally, and they are minimally added fats and sugars, as we rely on recipes that replace fats and sugars with heart-healthy substitutes such as applesauce for fat replacers and fruit juice for sugar. Each and every day, we focus on serving delicious, nutritious, and freshly prepared meals using locally grown food. We recognize the importance of educating our students in kitchen, garden, and academic classrooms about their food choices, the impact these choices have on their health, the community, and their environment. So as I said, we include that when we go out to bid. We spend well over $1 million a year on food, and we need to make sure that those that we're purchasing from understand our philosophy, so I don't waste time, so that we don't waste time looking through a lot of stuff that's out there, because believe me, there's a lot of stuff out there. When I was appointed almost 6 years ago as the Director of Food Service for our district, I had a large job cut out for me. The menu that I inherited and our warehouse was full of processed food, and my job was to clean that up. And I think within the last 6 years we've done a pretty good job at changing the menu that was highly processed and packaged to one that is wholesome and scratch cooked. So we've unified the menu across the board. Elementary schools for breakfast, lunch, and snack. We've enhanced the secondary menus by offering lots of choices, and we have salad bars, which as normal as the scene that is for us these days in our district, many districts still don't enjoy the benefit of a salad bar in every cafeteria. So we have a lot of good things working to our advantage, being that we're from Santa Barbara and we have such a wonderful plethora of great produce and wonderful small business supporting our district's Department of Food Service. With all this freshness and all this new food coming in, it would not have happened had it not been, and fortuitous as it was, that Orfalea Foundation and the School Food Initiative erupted on the scene just as I was appointed Food Service Director. So together we've worked over the years very closely together in strong partnership to educate and train existing staff and new staff as they've come aboard. And 70 of our 90 employees have gone through the Orfalea School Food Initiative Culinary Boot Camp. And honestly, without their resources and their hands-on approach, we would have never been able to afford that kind of luxury. Our food service team knows what to do with a knife, and we couldn't thank you enough for all the support that you've given us, really. So we've established in the last couple of years culinary academies. One is at San Marcos. The first one was at Dos Pueblos, and that was kind of hit and miss over the years, and all of a sudden it's blossoming into a really profitable endeavor. We're feeding faculty at Dos Pueblos, and the kids are producing the food while on a career technical path. And then following close second is San Marcos, that out of the blue, Ed Behrens decided he wants to run a culinary program, and he had the wherewithal and the motivation to make it happen. So we've got 2 out of our 3 high schools running culinary academies, and San Marcos is actually accredited and has the dual enrollment piece, which is really important as we're stepping further into career technical trades, and we know that not all kids are meant to go to college, but they certainly can learn a skill. And when we start with the genesis in high schools, I think it's a really important program. So learning how to cook is obviously an important skill that everybody should know. But teaching these programs and then integrating them into our dining rooms has been a really wonderful experience for everybody concerned, faculty, the students, the sense of pride, the fact that it's cut down on our labor in our kitchens because we've got these built-in hands that are willing and so able and learning all the time. So it's been a really, really wonderful program. We look to establish one at Santa Barbara High, too. So, hi. Okay, we have also continued developing strong partnerships with our local vendors in the community, some of them being Santa Cruz Market, where we get some of our meat that we use in some of our Mexican fare that is very, culturally appropriate, like carne asada and some of the dismillo that we're purchasing at Santa Cruz Market. We could get not a better price than what that local man is willing to sell to us. So it's really great to be keeping our dollars in the market and in our own beautiful community here in Santa Barbara. La Bella Rosa is another it's a bakery on San Andres, and we're buying our sub rolls, our telera, which we make our tortas on, and conchas, which are now whole grain and fiber rich instead of well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but Bella Rosa Bakery has become a really important part of the breakfast program in our schools, in our cafeterias. Warehouse. We have one. We have a warehouse here, and we're using it to its maximum potential. In fact, when we close this year with a positive fund balance, we're going to think about maybe putting some of those dollars to good use and expanding our warehouse capability, because in expanding our storage, we're able to buy bigger lots, better value, we're saving money, and it's just a really good move in the right direction to expand our purchasing practices to incorporate more space down in our warehouse. One of the things that I'm really proud of is eliminating styrofoam. It seems so simple, but because we are serving over 1.5 million meals a year, the idea of serving that on styrofoam became more and more repulsive to me. And I thought that we should start at the bottom by composting in our elementary schools. So we started in year 2 that I was director by inviting environmental service in, and they basically held assemblies the beginning and the middle and the end of the school years to reinforce the ideas behind composting, recycling, and trash. We were hoping that we'd offset our trash as a district. I'm not sure. I think we probably did. But the waters get muddied because unless we see an entire life cycle of the elementary child on through high school, right now we're not able to recycle or even compost in high school because they're just not engaged. The kids are not yet there. But starting in PK, K, and then on through 6th grade, when we're composting and showing them what a yellow container and a blue container and a gray container, what that actually represents in terms of us as stewards for the environment, I think they are going to be carrying that on as they matriculate on through high school. And we're going to start our composting programs in high school pretty soon. Right now, it's enough to just establish a healthy recycle program. But we are doing it. We're going to be increasing our recycle program as we start increasing our points of service on our high school campuses. So to cover all these costs, the labor that it takes to produce healthy, whole food from scratch, the equipment that it takes, although again, Orfalea Foundation was so generous with their monies toward investing in our district's department in terms of equipment and our labor, we need to cover those costs. One great way to cover those costs is by capitalizing on the government subsidy programs for the National School Lunch Program and the other programs that are also available. When I became the director, we were running one program. It was called the National School Lunch Program. Now we're running a lot of programs, and I think I get a little twinkle in my eye when I think about using federal money to feed kids. I mean, what a dream for me. So we've developed the Summer Food Service Program. That's the second program that we implemented. It was the second year that I was the director, and we decided to plunge in. We had never done a summer program before. It is daunting. The paperwork and the red tape is unbelievable, but it's worth it because last year we netted almost $70,000 in 8 weeks. I know I'm focusing on the money, but without the money, we can't feed the kids. So really, I'm always thinking of those two things, feed the kids and make the money, and put it together, and we've got a very healthy food service department right now. I say right now because with the federal regulations changing monthly, which is very hard to keep up with. The government keeps implementing and then rescinding and then implementing a little more different things. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010 enforced a couple of things. One was a wellness policy that that we have the opportunity to enjoy in our district. There are still districts that are still coming up to speed with that. We have a pretty solid wellness policy. Without that, I don't think we would be nearly as far along as we are right now. Summer food service program is just one. The Child and Adult Care Food Program is another program that has enabled us as a department to sponsor child development who was running in a deficit. I have no idea how they are now, but I know that the food service department helped them out by developing a program where they can run schools year-round and not have to pay for vended meals. So now the Child and Adult Care Food Program encompasses year-round food, breakfast, lunch, and snack for the child development program, and that I consider to be a good team effort and one that's paid off time and time again. So we plan on expanding that because under the Child and Adult Care Food Program is a new program called the Supper Program. The Supper Program is run similar to summer food, where it's any child 18 years or younger in a community of low income, of need, where we can pull up in a mobile cafe. My idea coming up this summer in the fall is a mobile cafe because we've got mobile cafe as part of our high school program, and they're sitting dormant from 2:30 in the afternoon Monday through Friday. So the supper program run very similarly under CACFP, Child and Adult Care Food Program, is a federal program. The reimbursement is higher than National School Lunch Program, and I do believe that when we pilot the program at Franklin in the fall, which is a great transition because Franklin is going to be under construction. We don't have a cafeteria for a good 6 months, so we're getting a mobile cafe. We're going to be parking within the school compound on Yananali and Voluntario. We're going to continue the supper program and pilot it at Franklin and see how we go. We've done preliminary calculations, and it looks like this could be a very profitable endeavor. And again, when I say profit, I'm thinking of labor and food, and that's pretty much it. I'm not thinking about, we're making a lot of money on the federal government. We're making money in order to follow our goal, our mission statement, which is to feed kids real food. Real kids, real food. It's so simple, and the money is there. The money is earmarked. I think I've taken a lot of heat over the years in summer for the summer program. I've gotten very nasty phone calls from people in the community. They're not like-minded, who are saying, why are we feeding people on tax dollars? And I say very simply that money, if it wasn't used for the food programs, would not be used at all. So as a director of food service, I'd be remiss to not use those monies appropriately and focus them where they best can do a lot of good for our department and for our district. So the 6-cent reimbursement, that was a program that happened last year in response to the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. We could certify our menus, which was no easy feat. It had a lot to do with nutritional specifications, but it was very, very definitive. And it took a while, but we did it. And for every meal served, we get 6 more cents per plate per child. So that has really helped bolster our bottom line since April of last year. And we look forward to continued success with 6 cents more. Though don't be confused with 6 cents being anywhere close to covering the increase in food costs that the drought, the increase in direct, And the very worthy increase in salaries and wages for our employees is going to hit. Our bottom line, it's going to cost our department probably a good $250,000 this year to cover those costs. So 6 cents, summer food, the supper program, all of these programs are going to help us weather the storm to come, because the drought is going to be a big one. We're looking at maybe a 20% increase in our food cost over the next year or two, and we need to think seriously about solutions. So some of those solutions include expanding the food service market. So we've developed a catering program that's been now 4 years in the making, and last year was the first year that we've actually turned a profit. This year looks even better as we contract with people like the Santa Barbara Athletic Club, who we deliver breakfast and lunch every day to, 100 different items every single day, Monday through Saturday. And that goes on through the summer months. It's a great vending contract for us. We look forward to that. We have a food bank contract with them where we provide the food bank with meals that are reimbursable, and then they go out and distribute those, and they claim those meals. So that's a good investment of our time and our labor and our food in those programs, those alternate programs that help keep our bottom line healthy. Storyteller, it's a nonprofit children's preschool, homeless children's preschool. We are their primary food vendor, and we're really proud of that relationship. That's been 4 years strong and continuing. Montecito Union School, believe it or not, doesn't have a food service program. They contract with us Monday through Friday and for special events. We roll one of our mobile cafes out to their site for breakfast and lunch, and that's a lucrative endeavor, and we're contracted through 2016 with them as they try to build their own infrastructure. As I referred to Mobile Cafe, I haven't spoken with some of the board members, but Mobile Cafe is very special, near and dear to me. The first ones were purchased with Orfalea Foundation monies again, and we've expanded the program to reach now 5 mobile cafes. The latest one going to be for Franklin Elementary because they will no longer have their kitchen. So Mobile Cafe is something where we can take that out into the community. We were doing Earth Day events. We did the Soul Food Festival. Yardy Systems out in Goleta has contracted with us. So our name is out there and the message is out there. So I do believe there's a real importance in our brand, SB Unified, and the fact that we're carrying the mission of the whole food statement and what we do for our kids in the community, in the district, out into the community, so they can, the community at large can really understand just how powerful a source this district is and how committed we are as a district to really changing the lives of each kid one by one, if so be it, because of the quality of the food that they're receiving in their cafeterias and in their dining rooms. Point of sale. It has become obvious that we need more point of service, point of sale. There is a problem. We did we've done what's called a provision to breakfast, meaning that all of our kids in elementary and secondary schools eat at no cost for breakfast. And it's working really well, except for 2 sites, Dos Pueblos High School and San Marcos. We're reaching almost 800 kids at Dos Pueblos during nutrition break, and yet we're upside down. The reason we're upside down, and something that maybe Meg is going to be able to relate to now, is with the local funding calculation and the fact that we're trying to get people to just submit documents that qualify or not qualify them, that just give us a sense of where they're at. When we go for a provision, we ask that every family fill out an application. And then we ask that once you fill that application out, you use the program. So our provisions are based on who's using the program. And at Dos Pueblos, it's really interesting, but the people coming into the cafeteria are not the kids that applied for the free lunch program. So we're upside down. We're actually losing money out there. And it has been it's been an obvious and hard lesson to know and understand that there's still a huge stigma attached with going into the cafeteria. Even if we paint the walls and put pretty murals up, the bottom line is, from very early on, these kids have been taught that you're on the free lunch program, you must be poor. And so we're finding that the more we take the food out of the cafeterias, for instance, Mobile Cafe, we're doing over 200 meals in 20 minutes in our high school campuses for lunch because of Mobile Cafe. So what we plan on doing is taking some of our profit from this year and buying more kiosks and Cambro carts. They're permissible by the County Public Health. And we can roll them out into quads, and that's what we're going to do for breakfast at Dos Pueblos starting in the fall. We're going to have 5 different more alternate points of sale, and we're going to do grab and go so kids don't feel the pressure of needing to go into the cafeteria to pick up lunch or breakfast. We're going to start with breakfast and, well, actually, we're going to start with breakfast and lunch because we're going to be purchasing these kiosks. We're going to be able to establish grab-and-go meals. They will need to put their ID numbers in because we're reestablishing our provision. The provisions are based on the percentage of kids using the program. And because this year we're upside down, we're throwing out those numbers. They're not good enough. They're not high enough. We're going to be locked into a percentage that doesn't serve us well. So we're going to do it again. We're going to talk to the kids, and we're going to talk to the administrators. And for me, the principals are the number one point people for me to communicate with in terms of the value of families filling out these applications so that we can continue to offer food at no cost for breakfast. My goal as your director is to establish a provision, universal provision for breakfast and lunch. And someday, hopefully, we'll be able to serve all kids free, no matter what. Because for me, I think that like food, education is free, food should be free, we should be serving it in copious amounts in health and in well-being. So that's an important provision that we're going to be looking at establishing in the next couple of years as we make profitability, as we continue to go forward with profit. Then I could feel more comfortable about turning our lunchrooms into places where kids can actually come or outside the lunchroom and receive free meals. I think that's really important. The audit. We had an audit. Audits only happen every 5 years, but now with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, they're happening every 3 years, and they're based much more intensely on the fiscal part of the audit of the audit process. It used to be they'd come in and just watch the cafeteria ladies as they put together their sandwiches, making sure that there was enough protein or carbohydrate or whatever the regulation is. Now it's not only that and meeting all the vegetable subgroups like dark greens and red and orange vegetables that are inherent in the 6 cents that we get now. We have to certify that we're serving those extra foods. Now what's happened is they're looking at our books and they're coming onto campuses and they're tracking down students as they're walking from the Mad Academy. So that was one audit finding, and it was a real interesting point. I was not going to point out our Mad Academy, though I knew what Mad Academy is doing. I try to work with our organizations on campus. I really do believe that fundraising has become so micromanaged that I miss the days of bake sales. I really do. I miss the days where parents could come and celebrate in the classroom with their kids when it's birthday time. But because of all of the health and crisis of health that is, in front of us and facing us and taxing our healthcare system and more importantly, killing our kids, I think it is really important that we unify our vision. And that's why the wellness policy is so important, because really all the board policy, all the ARs, and all of the outside forces can be very strict, but the wellness policy can be what we want it to be. So when we found Mad Academy, and they're not the only ones selling, there's many organizations throughout our secondary schools that are selling junk, no doubt about it. I do believe that the wellness policy could be a great place to start focusing some of those fundraisers. I know that this year I wasn't privy to any of the fundraisers going on that had anything to do with food, and I know that that's something that theoretically we as a department should be privy to. So I would ask that going forward, depending on how you feel about it, that I could help you be the overseeing body about foods that are being sold, because food of minimal nutritional value really have no place on our campus, have no place in the educational forum as we see it. So, the audit. Everything else was fairly good. There were two issues that did come up that were very interesting. They were both out of our department's purview. One was Harding Elementary, and unfortunately Harding was based on Peabody, and the problem was Peabody. Peabody is a charter school. They were running a very separate program, and whenever you're enjoying public federal funds and they're being distributed and they're not being overseen by one body, which would be our Department of Food Service, there's a dilution of the money and of the control. And so what was happening when our auditor came and asked, are there any menus that are separate from this menu that I've presented, I had to say yes, it's Peabody, and there's Harding as well. So they did look at Harding. They strongly suggest that Harding become part of our food service department's purview, which they are, and it's a good thing. There was a lot wrong, and now there's a lot right. Peabody, the recommendation is that they most likely get their own contract with the state if they want to proceed with their own food service program. And obviously Laura Lyle's done a great job for years, and you know, if she doesn't want to be part of our department, I see no problem with her going forward in good health and wholeness like she's been doing for years. Future goals. Well, the Santa Barbara Farm Academy is still on the agenda. I love the idea of the Hidden Valley property turning into an outdoor classroom and farm academy. I think more and more as the career technical path becomes a priority, or at least an objective in terms of our, you know, of our district, that the Farm Academy could supply not only valued educational opportunities for our kids, but it could also supply us with produce year-round. So we've got very interested parties looking at the land and talking about wells versus metered water, and we'll be keeping you posted on that. But before I retire, I hope that that's something that you can see realized in the department. Any questions?
Dr. Paz.
You know, sometimes we get the opportunity to see some of the vendors you use because we're reviewing our, you know, all the expenditures.
Right.
But it would be great to have a list of our local vendors, and me selfishly, because I want to patronize them, I want to pay back the fact that they're paying us in lots of different ways. And I think other people may feel the same way, and that would be a great thing for me. I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, and until I actually asked Dr. Cash at one point in time, it's like, why are we spending money? It's like, we buy products for them for food service. It's like, oh, I didn't know. I had no idea.
I think that'd be a good e-news piece, barbecuing.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that would be great, because there, like even tonight, you mentioned a couple, well, one.
Rosa.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And Santa Cruz Market, just Tom Madruden, who owns that, has been an advocate and a supporter since I took the post. So.
Yeah, that would be great if you could do that.
I will do that.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Edelson?
I know there was some controversy mid-year with the breakfast in the classroom food items being served. How has that played out, and have things changed as far as the type of food in some ways that was being served?
Well, to be honest with you, there is nothing that I purchased that I don't stand behind. So there were two items in particular that created quite an uproar. One was a pancake in a bag, and the other was a bean and cheese burrito. Both of those items were extremely well received by our students, not so much by their parents. And there were only a few parents, and that was only at one site. We did decide that we would, cut bait and lose that argument altogether, because it was too cumbersome and too time-consuming. I'm not here to shove a program down anybody's throat. I'm here to just to create healthy programs. So we need atmospheres that nurture those environments. And if at Roosevelt there was a problem, it's over with. In terms of the quality of the food, we still have pancakes in a bag, and we still have burritos, and they're still really enjoyed by our kids. Those pancakes are low sugar, high fiber, and the burritos are just, they're great. They're whole grain, and they're bean and they're cheese, and the kids love them. Nutrition is only nutrition if a kid will eat it. So just like I will continue to serve oatmeal for breakfast in the classroom at our other sites that are thriving under the program. Oatmeal is not their favorite, but I'm committed to serving oatmeal, what can I say, along with my pancakes.
Okay, thank you. And I have one other question. When I drive by along Cannon Perdido, sometimes
Churro man.
There's
Churro man.
Okay. And
yeah, you know, it's funny because again, our wellness policy could frame that so we could at least have some teeth when I approach him. I have approached him anyway. You know, I tried to, but it wasn't as powerful as it could be if I had some, you know, backup, if I had my posse behind me.
And if you parked a mobile cafe school district van behind him, or?
Well, what we were thinking is just parking my car in that location so that he just doesn't have the opportunity to park there.
Okay.
You know, I did try to have a decent conversation with the gentleman, but you know, hey, it's free market, and he's entitled. He's entitled.
Right.
I don't know what child has $5 extra monies to go purchase a churro, though. You know, but the more we impress upon our kids about what really constitutes a healthy meal and what that does to their bodies, I think the more they're going to pass that churro man right by.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
Mr. Heron.
How are we doing with vending machines and teacher emulating what you want them to emulate in their classrooms or in their lounges and et cetera?
Well, you know, I am not one to say that our staff lounge, even here, shouldn't have a Coke or Flamin' Hot Cheetos if that's what somebody wants. The problem is when adults are walking around campus with these items, and they should know better. Shame on them. They should know better. But vending machines on campuses are clean, and except for the electrolyte replacement waters like Propel or Gatorade, which come July this year, 2014, there is a new healthy competitive foods. In fact, I went to the seminar this morning where the margins are very narrow now, and the idea of selling electrolyte replacement waters is something that's going to be gone soon. So as long as our wellness policy has the teeth, then we're doing really well. And as a whole, there are very few vending machines that are selling Gatorade now. So we're doing okay.
Simone?
Thank you. I was looking forward to this presentation and report. And if you didn't see e-news, I think it was last week or the week before, the students in our district that gave the district an award gave the food services program kudos for the great food. So when the students are saying that there's good food, I have to trust that it's good food, even though the food that I've had from the district is excellent. So
thank you.
My question is, how is the district? I mean, we have a number of events we go to, and I know that some of the events I see some of the culinary program students catering the events, and others I don't. So how this, and you may not want to answer this, but I'm curious of the district's overall response on the catering program.
Oh, I want to answer that.
Please do.
To be honest with you, I believe that we should be supporting our department's division of catering. I think that it not only is healthy for our district just financially, but it also sends a very clear message that our other district departments support what we're doing as a district and want to support what we're doing. So I have a hard time when I find that there's other departments that are catering outside with other vendors. But again, it's a free market, and I'm not going to shove our programs down anybody's throat. It is what it is.
Well, thank you. And I would hope on my part that we do try to encourage our departments, our school sites, that if we are catering and in some way selling, that we would support our district. I think the piece about modeling behavior is absolutely important, not just for students, but also I think for adults. And this is our program. I mean, you're part of the team here at Santa Barbara Unified, so I would hope that just like, we support each other in other departments, we would do the same. So thank you.
Thank you, too.
Dr. Paz.
One last question, because of the last comment Ms. Limon made. I work for an organization where we sometimes cater as well, or have a catering need, smaller numbers of people, not hundreds, but so if someone was to contact you, that would be great to get that information out to different people, because I know.
And Weiss.
Okay.
SB Unified.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will follow up with you.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Paz. Yeah, that would be great.
But we'll be really clear, it's NWeiss, WEISS, at sbsdk12.org,
That's
okay?
it. Thank you, Madam
For
President.
members of the public.
That's it.
All right. Well, I was laughing because you make the churro man sound like El Chupacabra. But I just have to say, what a sea change since I first came on the board and after you were hired. It's just been wonderful to watch and so fabulous to see what our students experience. So I appreciate that. I just went last week to see the latest documentary, Fed Up. I don't know if you've seen that yet. And I was watching the school section of it going, that just seems so alien.
Foreign, I know.
It just, I just can't imagine that happening in schools.
Right.
And to know that we have just come so far. I appreciate what you do. I know that we're going to hear more about the wellness policy and about Orfalea. We could not have done this without Orfalea.
No, we could not.
And it was just incredibly serendipitous. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we just look forward to, I would love, a Santa Barbara Farm Academy at the Hidden Valley property. I know the community would love that as well. You have some great ideas for the future, and there's a lot to do. So thank you.
There is a lot to do. I'm in it. Thanks. Thank you.
So that moves us on to H2. This is the presentation to the Board of Education from the Wellness Council. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much. We have the Wellness Council Chair, Monica Scafidi, also a great math teacher at Dos Pueblos High School, here to present the Wellness Council's report for the 2013-14 school year.
Thank you. Just going to wait a second for technology to catch up with us. Okay, members of the board, thank you for having me. I'd like to give a shout out initially to my tech coaches, Kelly Choi and Gina Pierce at Dos Pueblos, who helped me put together this Prezi with my iPad that is a loaner iPad from the district, so thank you. Initially, I want to thank the steering committee, and the amount of support I received from them is evidence because they're all in the room tonight. So Dr. Paul Cronshaw, Naomi Sarizawa from Orfalea, Nancy Weiss, and Mitch Torina, thank you for your support. And next up is jumping right into the wellness policy assessment. So this is what it looks like. It's a checklist about 2.5 pages long. Some of the answers are pre-slugged because food services handles those issues for us. So we have automatically yeses pre-slugged into our policy. And it contains 6 categories, as it has for several years. And last year, when I presented, I know I had a slide that was titled non-compliances. Well, I'd like to be a little more positive this year, so I'm looking at compliances. And the next slide. This shows overall how we've come since May of 2012. And you can see we've had a lot of ups and downs, but as a math teacher and now teaching a lot more statistics because of Common Core, you can see we have a positive correlation, meaning we're going up, we're improving. So this year in May, when I made the chart, I didn't have all of the assessments in from all the sites. So actually both elementary and secondary are at about 92% compliance. And the way that I come up with that number is just looking at the amount of items on the checklist and seeing how many are checked yes. What's the percentage of yeses? And right now we have 31 items on the list. The list was actually renewed or revised slightly at the beginning of this year, and that was one of our goals last year, was to look at the wellness policy checklist and see, are these things really feasible that we can accomplish? And so we've done a little bit of revising on that. So for next year, in looking at all of the policies that have come in from the sites, I picked out some things that seem to be repeated at various sites. And these are things I'd like our Wellness Council to focus on next year. So increasing integration of nutrition in the classroom, nutrition education, not just in health class, not just in PE, but in math and English and science as well. And also increase good nutrition for classroom parties. Nancy touched on this a little bit about celebrating birthdays in the classroom, and I know that probably is more prevalent in the elementary schools than high schools, but still students come to class with, you know, huge bunches of balloons and then a big cake, and everybody dips in with their hands into the cake. And so personally in my classroom, I want to try and promote a different type of celebration, at least at school. And I'd like to work with others in the Wellness Council to try to bring that to light a little bit more. And lastly, physical activities for staff. This is going to be one of our focuses for next year, and I think Lois from Orfalea is going to speak on this as well. And so I always like to finish with photographs of the kids, and this is the funnest part of being a Wellness Council chair, is Wellness Day. And at our last meeting in April, we got to hear what each school site actually did for Wellness Day. And so just going to share with you a couple of pictures. At San Marcos, they had a spin bike competition, and it unfortunately was a day of one of the few days of rain that we had, and so they had to move everything inside. But they still did it, and they still had a great time. And the next slide. And there's our famous Nancy Weiss, and that's at Dos Pueblos, and she's serving up some really scary fruit like dates and blueberries and pineapple. So that was our fruit fear factor table. And on the left, oops, one more. These are the little guys at Santa Barbara Community Academy, and they were learning some kind of a dance. So that was one of the wellness things, was dance and games and food. And on the next slide, lots of smoothie bikes. It seems like there's several organizations in town now that have a smoothie bike that you can rent for free. And we had one also at Dos Pueblos, and the culinary students manned the smoothie bike and made smoothies, of course, while someone else pedaled and did the work. So you're burning calories while you're preparing good food at the same time. And this is at Monroe, and there's Chef Claude Mann serving up some foods from the garden. And below is another item I think Lois is going to touch on, and that is the salad bar ambassadors. It's such a great idea to have the older students at the elementary school monitor the salad bar as the little ones come through and actually teach them what's a good selection and proper etiquette, I think, also at the salad bar. And so lastly, for next year, we want to make sure we participate in Food Day in October. That's the 24th. Again, the workplace wellness program, where we're going to try to encourage our staff, more walk to work, bike to work, maybe open up our own spin bikes on campus, things like that we're looking at. And lastly, food clubs at the high schools. We're working toward having these students be like the salad bar ambassadors at the elementary school. Maybe we can have these students come out to the kiosks that Nancy was talking about and help students realize the good food that's in front of them and just sort of be an ambassador of health. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Board members? Mr. Herron.
I'll just say thank you for leading a great group. I mean, every 3 times a year you put on great programs, great meetings, and you have a great team of people helping us at every school. Appreciate it very much.
And thank you, and Ms. Edison, for also being part of that team.
Good. How many did every school send a representative this past year, or were there any that were missing?
I can't say that every school attended all 3 meetings, but at least we had a representative at least one meeting. Okay. I mean, a representative from every school, except the charter schools.
Okay. And did you feel like, I mean, when the original wellness policy changes were coming in, I mean, there have been some tweaks since the major revisions, but when the major revisions were coming in, there was a lot of pushback. Do you feel like it's less like that now? That I mean, every now and then we'll get a new, like a kindergarten parent coming in who will send an angry email about the fact that they're not allowed to bring cupcakes for their kid's birthday. But it seems far, few and far between now compared to what was originally happening.
I'd have to agree.
Yeah.
And some of the schools, elementary in particular, have been reporting 100% compliance with the policy, both at the beginning and the end of the year. So we do it in October to kind of get a baseline, and then April, May to get a report on how well they move toward their goals for the year. And so several elementary schools, and I think La Colina also, are reporting 100% compliance with the policy. So
great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
And next is the presentation to the Board of Education from the Orfalea Foundation, H3.
Madam President, we have Lois Mitchell, the president of the Orfalea Foundation, is here. And yes, and looking forward to hearing their presentation this evening.
Great.
First, I want to, before you get started, repeat what's already been said by the previous two speakers, and that is to thank you very much for your work on behalf of children in our community.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for letting us address you this evening. We couldn't be more proud of all that's been accomplished here and to have been kind of behind the scenes in helping this change to happen. And that's kind of what I wanted to speak to you about this evening, is some change that is happening with our support. And I'm not sure if all of you had a chance to look through the read-aheads that we supplied, but when our foundation was created in the year 2000, we kind of began not really knowing exactly where we wanted to go, but we had a strong interest in education, and we've invested very heavily in the county with all of the school districts. So the change that we were requested to do by our founders over time was really a systemic change, not to continue to just fund programs as is, even though, of course, we believe in a lot of the programs that there are, but was to really invest in changing the way things are done. And that is the case with the school food initiative and with some of our other programs like our preschool food and outdoor classroom. I know Michelle there's going to be some talk later on about the early childhood education. But anyway, I'm here tonight because we also, in creating the foundation, decided that it wouldn't go into perpetuity, that the funding would be spent down during the lifetimes of the founders. And the date for the foundation to end for the Orfalea Fund is December 2015. So all of our foundations have been very focused on ensuring the sustainability of where our investments have been. And by that, I mean where we've really put in time, resources, not just funds, because we've really been on the ground working with our partners, and we consider the school districts, along with the individual campuses and schools, to very much be our partners. And that's why we're here this evening, is that we're taking the time to meet with each of our key partners to say, how else can we be supportive of you as we depart over the next year and a half? So we've had the permission to speak with the individual principals as the meeting comes up, and we'll be going in with to talk with them and just kind of share some of the best practices and what we've learned from tracking our work going forward, to again leave them in a strong place, because the last thing that we want is for work to go backwards, for it to revert back after there's been so much change taking place. So I'm going to turn over to my two colleagues here. Claude Mann, you saw him in the picture a little while ago. Chef Mann is going to talk a little bit about what has taken place and changes, and Dean's going to speak. He's our communications manager at the foundation. He's going to wrap it up. And I'm going to hand you a new tool that we're going to be using to give to the principals that replaces the draft one that I had sent ahead of time.
And this is Chef Man, not to be confused with Churro Man. That's
or Chupacabra. As usual, Nancy is very, very thorough. And a lot of what I was going to talk about, she touched base on. But I think it's important, if we're talking about the spend down and where we're going to be, it's great to talk about some of our successes and the improvements that have been made. The School Food Initiative invested close to $295,000 over the last 4 years, not including the cost for food service workers to participate in culinary trainings, as well as on-site technical assistance and support provided by SFI chef instructors, of which I am one, and Naomi Sarazawa is here as well. Funding has been allocated to purchase equipment and supplies to increase the capacity of SBUSD to cook meals from scratch. And that is really the big deal there. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I've been involved in other school districts when they say, why can't you just cook good food? And we understand it's like turning a cruise ship around in the ocean. We've also had, obviously, the design and purchase of mobile cafes, staff and program development to facilitate school food reform and greater awareness of healthy food choices among food service staff. Some of the major improvements and successes are that, as Nancy said, the majority of food service workers have graduated from SFI's culinary boot camp and now demonstrate a willingness of spirit to initiate and sustain changes. And I can really attest to that, the impact of the boot camps. When one of the chefs, when we show up at a kitchen, and rather than having an outsider that might be threatening, we know them, we worked with them, we know their skills and and we know the challenges of that kitchen. And Nancy's made it possible where we go in and we say, what are you working on? They say, well, we'd like to make a ranch dressing from scratch. And so we roll up our sleeves and we go in and we work with them on that. But it's the impact in each and every kitchen, the cooking kitchens especially, has been just enormous. 10 of the 13 elementary schools now have school gardens, and the district supports environmental educators. And that's a big one. We call them the EEs. Right now it's 6 schools to maintain and facilitate learning and teaching in the garden. And again, all of the chefs now with Orfalea have been going out in the garden and working, doing garden-based learning for all grades from K through 6.
Explore Ecology is here too.
Explore Ecology is here as well. And this has been, I think, the impact to be able to go into the garden and not just have the garden there, but to pick from the garden, to pull things, to talk about eating the rainbow, talking about eating seasonally. And we'll sit there with the kids and say, what is here right now that wasn't here 6 months ago? And then it dawns on them, there were no tomatoes, or there was no basil, whatever that. So it's this, I think, the impact of this program, just for me to see the kids of all ages cooking and eating in the garden. And when they're eating something that they had a hand in growing, you see a kid reach down and eat cauliflower. They would never eat that cauliflower if their mom put it on the plate. But when they take ownership and they've grown it themselves, it's enormously, enormously powerful. And that's right now. We've had 12 schools that have hosted Chefs in the Garden, with chefs teaching 3 to 5 classes per day preparing food grown in the school gardens. And I would encourage any of you on the board, if you'd ever like to come, call us and ask when we'll be doing one of these trainings, or call Explore Ecology and come witness it for yourself, because the power is just enormous, especially if we also have a mechanism to get any of that food into the cafeteria. At La Colina, very often Kathleen at La Colina will put out tomatoes and basil and lettuce and things that were in their garden. The kids see that and they see the connection. And these kids actually know where food is coming from. I've been in districts where they don't know what a potato is because it doesn't look like a French fry. So we're way ahead of the game with that. 3 high schools, 2 junior high schools, and 7 elementary schools in the district now have water refill hydration stations and reusable canteens as part of the Rethink the Drink program, of which you're all aware. And that's a big one, not just having that access to fresh water, but the fact that the kids can get up and get water at any time. It really has to be a change in the culture. Because again, I'm in cafeterias sometimes in other districts where the kids cannot get up and get water, and there's one drinking fountain a ways away. And if you go to Franklin, take a look at the counter on the hydration station at Franklin School, and that thing is just turning over like mad, and each one of those numbers represents a plastic bottle that's been mitigated. So it's not only the waste, but it's that these kids are actually drinking water and not drinking other things. Santa Barbara High School and San Marcos High School, as Nancy mentioned, have established food clubs. And what's been so great about these food clubs is that Nancy or one of her representatives have been there at every single meeting. And I've been lucky enough to be at the meetings as well. The kids wanted to have a say and to be heard. And Nancy brought her notebook and she started taking notes. And when they talked about, by the time we walk from the north end of campus to the cafeteria, and then we stand in line, we can't eat. And that's when she said, well, we can do a POS station, a point of service station. We started talking about that, and then the kids said, but we'd like to actually have a place to eat. Right now, there's not, we can get the food, but we're going and we're sitting on a bumper or on the curb. And so they went to the wood shop, and we met with them today. They've gotten numbers from the wood shop to have benches and tables made there. And so those will be going in the shade. The POS system will be up. And this happened within like 3 meetings. The kids could not believe that this happened so quickly. So I think the food clubs are going to be very, very powerful. We're reaching out to the freshmen and sophomores. So right now we've got a lot of seniors. When they go, we'd like it to be sustainable. But keep your eye on the food clubs, definitely. Implementation of pilot salad bar host program at Washington, Franklin, and McKinley. We talked about that a little bit. That one is something that I've been lucky enough and be part of as well. And tomorrow we're actually going in to train more kids at Franklin. But we have the 6th graders. We go in and talk with them for an hour or so. First about the need for it, and then we talk about safety and sanitation and salad bar etiquette and some of the nuts and bolts of using a salad bar. Ask them when they were little, do they remember how confusing it was? Because very often kindergartners and first graders don't even know where they are, and they get to the salad bar and somebody's placed them there and they put a crouton on their plate and they're still very confused. So now we have 6th graders there that just by virtue of the fact that an older kid is talking to a 1st grader, a 2nd grader, a 3rd grader, their eyes open up wide. And I've got actually some photographs with me today of them. And it's such a big deal when a 6th grader says, I grow tomatoes at home in the summertime. And these kids actually are eating a greater variety of fruits and vegetables. Anecdotally, we see that there is less plate waste, which, as we know, is a huge, huge issue. It's plate waste. So that one is doing great. Once the kids have the food on their plate, then the 6th graders go out and they sort of circulate while the kids are eating. And if they're not eating something, they'll talk with them. And the idea is that it's subtle persuasion. And I think that it's going to work very, very well. We'd like to see it all over. And it doesn't cost anybody anything. That's what's so great. Also, we find that the 6th graders have said, I've gone in and we've surveyed them now, they're paying more attention to their diets. Because they said, I'm talking to these other kids about their diet, so I am thinking about my diet. Am I drinking, soft drinks? So we talk with them also about soft drinks and sugar-sweetened beverages and that type of thing. So I think it's just a wonderful program. I'd like to see it in all the schools if we can. And as long as I'm with Orfalea and we're around, we're going to try to facilitate that. One thing at Washington, it's running on its own now. It's absolutely self-sustaining, and it's part of the culture at Washington School. It's one of those things that I think is a great success if we can stand back and it's moving along on its own. Dean?
Hello. Hello again, some of you. I wanted to clarify something. I really appreciate all the praise that we've received tonight. Head will barely fit through the door on the way out, but I needed to be clear about something. You're not doing really well because we're here. We're here because you're doing really well. We're investors. And if there's one thing 40 years in the stock market has taught me, you go with a winner. You've got the right leadership. You've got the right moment in time. You've seen fed up. You no longer take for granted what is happening right here. I urge you all to see it, though it is kind of grim and depressing. I like that sort of thing. Maybe you don't. But the idea being, you're already a beacon of health and wellness. And so don't stop me if you've heard this one before about adding something to the local control accountability plan. But we would really like to see health and wellness embedded into that plan in a very specific way. And we've included those 10 aspirations that we think are really important. And you're way ahead on a lot of those. Now, I personally am not above adding something to my to-do list after I've done it, just for the sheer joy of crossing it off. But there's also room for improvement. There are new opportunities. And what's most important to us as we are retiring the Orfalea Fund is understanding that an actual cultural change has taken place and that it is codified in the way that you do business in the district, that health and wellness are a priority. They're such a priority, you don't even think of them as a priority anymore because it's just the way we are. And that's more or less what we're looking at. Workplace wellness has been brought up a couple of times this evening, and that is a part of this. Nancy said that she wouldn't remove the hot Cheetos and the soft drinks from the vending machines. I would. I'm just pointing that out, even behind the scenes. But yes, we want adults to set a good example. We want students and parents to understand that when they're at school, they're in that safe place where they can concentrate on learning. So we're very excited about what you've achieved. We're honored to be associated with this district. We want other districts around the country to see this beacon and be drawn to this light and learn from what you've accomplished here. And we think that codifying these items in the plan is a good way of letting the world know how much you already care about these things. We've heard it from all of you tonight. You care about health and wellness. My daughter told me I should tell you to put a ring on it. So that's what I'm asking. Put a ring on it, make a commitment, get it in the LCAP. And this, I believe, concludes my formal presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Any questions for us?
Yes, board members? Ms. Limon?
So thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the investment. The investment goes a long way. My question's actually for Dr. Cash. Hearing that 10 out of our 13 elementary schools have garden, that means 3 don't. And hearing that not
There
all...
are 3 charter schools.
And so those are the only ones? There was, I think,
Well-
a non-charter school that there was...
Yeah, Peabody has one. So I'm trying to think, yeah, we have, I believe, only,
Peabody had one before.
yeah, I put in that Peabody Garden.
So I would
1988.
would actually, I mean, I think we have a board liaison here for one of our charter schools. It sounds like the other charter school has one, and so that leaves another school. And I would love to see that the 3 that don't have one consider having one. I mean, the benefits are not just that we have some grown food, as Nancy said, that goes into cafeteria, but the science piece, the learning piece, the changing the culture piece. And what are we doing to make this permanent changes in our district? I mean, we have some way to go, and so how do we ensure that this doesn't go away in 5 years?
Well, in every draft of the LCAP, we've included our garden educators as a key component, and I think that was reinforced tonight as how important they are. And I really like this. I hadn't seen it in this format.
Yeah, we hadn't finished it.
But I can confess that we had spoken earlier about this, and I can anticipate that you'll see much of this in the draft of the LCAP, that you'll have an opportunity to look at the next board meeting. So I agree. I think moving forward, we codify what we're doing and where we want to go aspirationally.
Right, and I think the drinking stations are another piece to it. I know that those are, so.
I wrote myself a question about that. Where don't we have water rehydration stations? And I said we need them at every school.
I have one other suggestion, if, please, and think it's in there, is that there's a lot of parents, there's a lot of teachers, people that work at the schools that don't even know that there is a wellness policy that exists, and you guys are so good about, having your committee meetings and the rest. It should go out with the back-to-school materials. It should just be one of those kinds of documents that everyone receives and realizes, yes, there is some, substance and, a policy that can always be referred to.
Great, thank you. I think that's a great suggestion, that it makes it in the big back-to-school packet.
Dr. Paz.
I just want to thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, I look back at my own self when I was working in Carpenter Unified in 1997, thinking about putting a garden in that place. No one had thought about it. It's like, well, let's put one in. I never got the opportunity because we couldn't find a place for it. But I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I think a number of these things we're already on our way. And I do agree that we need to work on the rest, and that would be something that I would like to see or continue to see. I mean, I look at all the activities that we as a school district are doing and see so many opportunities. We live in a wonderful place, which is Santa Barbara. We are a block away from our farmers market on Saturday. And think about all the connections we could, as a school district, continue to implement and really be even I think of us as a beacon, but I don't think of us as that beacon quite to the point where I'd like to see us be, because I would like to see us be even a greater beacon, to really be that example that shows the rest of the state that we can do this. Because I look at it as all these things, they don't pick an individual student. It's not based on color, it's not based on race, it's not based on ethnicity, it's not even based on SES. It's based on, this should be happening for all students, and this is something that we as a community should invest in, because it helps all of our students be ready. And it continues to help our students be better at what they do. And making sure that our students in our classroom are not hungry, and that they are as able as possible to learn is really what is said in here. And so I would love to see more of that as a school district. I mean, I would support anything we could possibly do to continue to do that, because I think we have so many connections with our local community that we just need to continue to capitalize. And like I said, we are that close to a farmer's market, which in some ways I almost feel like, why aren't we doing more of those connections? So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Ms. Edelson?
I also saw Fed Up and was very, it opened my eyes to many things. Do you feel the influences are on the schools, like the movie? I mean, has that come up as issues for, corporate influence, or how Orfalea has operated locally? Has there been roadblocks in any way to what you've wanted to do and how it's impacted Santa Barbara schools?
I think Nancy probably could address that very well.
There are roadblocks for implementing gardens, or?
Are you talking about gardens? You're talking in general, the corporate
I'm talking
interest in-
food. You probably need to go up to the mic, but if...
Getting food? Well, in terms of...
You have to go to the mic. Ms. Idelson can clarify once you get up there. What exactly did you mean, Ms. Idelson?
Yeah, can you ask?
I would say the movie emphasized in my mind that schools, so much about food production and offering it to students is blocked by corporations and all this. And if we're cooking from scratch and emphasizing gardens, and it's...
I am not personally finding that in our department. I think that the bigger we dream, the more we're able to find people to fill in the gaps. So in terms of local farmers, our farmers market, we've got Santa Barbara Harvest Santa Barbara, which is a cooperative of farmers. We use a lot of those farmers to supplement what we're purchasing. So
right, and with Orfalea's impact on gardens in the schools, has there been a good way to supplement the food service with those gardens, or is it just more, bits and pieces of it where the kids...
It's more of the educational piece, but I'll tell you, Breakfast in the Classroom is one of those very powerful programs that can be used to take a couple minutes and educate on where the produce came from, or what organic means. There's so much that can happen in 20 minutes in the beginning of the day while we're giving kids the opportunity to eat, that those kinds of lessons can be really short and very sweet and to the point. So.
Good. And I again want to emphasize the great appreciation for what all of Orfalea's involvement has done for our schools. And Nancy bringing it to us.
And I would say, I think what Nancy did early on was that she diverted her commodity dollars that going away from commodity foods that were shipped in frozen and taking your commodity dollars, buying whole muscle meats was a big one, because that's, I think, where corporate interests are butting heads with health. Because the National School Lunch Program in 46, it was not, it's maybe the tertiary reason was to feed kids, but it was to get rid of surplus agricultural commodities. And that's still the case in some ways. There's big players selling really terrible food to kids all over the country. And when Nancy got out of that, I think then she shifted the food culture here.
Thank you. Mr. Herron.
And I've got some photographs.
Great.
These are just the salad bar ambassadors in action, and it just makes me so happy to look at them.
Yeah, I'd like to say, the focus here is on food and gardens, but I'd like to take a minute to thank you for everything that Orfalea does. Example would be Computers for Families. If Orfalea didn't support Computers for Families, we wouldn't have that program. And there's a multitude of things like that in this community. So everything that you do is going to be sorely missed, but hopefully everything you've done, we can now stand on our own and do it ourselves.
That was the idea.
If that works, it's fantastic.
Their promise of in perpetuity, we're able to, this last round, send some of our top people in our kitchens, managers mostly, to the very last round of Train the Trainer boot camp, where we're going to make sure that what they've implemented is going to be fully sustainable and go forward for years and years to come. Valuable lessons.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And don't go anywhere. My turn. Ms. Weiss, you can sit down. I don't think I'm going to speak to you. But I just wanted to say, I have a graduating senior this year, and when he was in elementary school, he learned about food as a second grade standard, and it involved a trip to the grocery store and a trip to a food garden. And that was it. And so I have two younger children who have completely benefited from essentially the transformation in education that's gone on, so that it's certainly at the elementary level, across the grade levels, the school gardens are amazing. I was laughing because yesterday on Memorial Day I was having lunch with 3 little girls, 5th graders from Adams, at a place where there was a salad bar. They all helped themselves to salad. One of the 5th graders helped herself to a heaping pile of radishes and was like eating radishes. And I'm like, I know you've seen those in the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and I guess, but it's really having a real world effect. And I see that especially in the younger students, and I hope that will continue with them as they transition into the secondary grade level. I understand why the foundation is coming, it had sort of an end date to it. It still breaks my heart because, you talked about, going with winners, but really it was on faith. It was on faith when Orfalea started with us, because we were in a very bad place. And I hope that we've learned lessons from you over the years, and absolutely I think that everything that we're doing is sustainable. But you've had such great ideas, and it's really been a tremendous help, and I'm going to miss the ideas that you would have had in the future. So thank you for everything that you've done, and we'll keep up the good work. I know that you're members of our community too, and that you'll be there in other ways for us. So thank you, and I'm sorry to see you go, but thank you for everything.
Well, we'll be around for a little while longer.
Yeah.
That's why the conversations with the principals and at the school levels are so important, because some of them, the cultural shift has already taken place, and others, they can still use that little bit of help while we're still here. So
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is H4, this discussion of revised job description for school nurse, but we're pulling that. So we're moving to H5, discussion of an additional school nurse position. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much. As board members are aware, school nursing is an extraordinarily important part of our workforce in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And school nurses provide and perform valuable duties and tasks each and every day, and oftentimes are one of the most important persons for our students to work with. And we have Dr. Christensen here tonight to bring forward the idea of hiring one additional school nurse in our district.
Good evening again. The district is presenting for your consideration adding an additional school nurse to our district. And here to present the rationale for adding this position is Mr. Mike Steeren, who is our program facilitator. He'll give you the background, how we got here to this recommendation.
So this is the first of 2 times you get to see me tonight, sorry. So good evening, board members, Dr. Cash, and thank you, Dr. Christensen. So when in last June, Helen Rodriguez asked me to take over management of the nurses. They were shifted from pupil services back to special education. And so one of the first things I did, since I knew literally nothing about sort of what their day-to-day operations were, was to set up a series of meetings with Liz Christian, who's the lead nurse for the district, essentially their department chair. And I used to have to kind of tell her, you need to talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old because I have no clue, what you guys are talking about. But I just came down to numbers, basically, which was that we had 6 school nurses for 15,500, 600 students. You divide that evenly, which that's not the way it's divided, but even if you did divide it evenly, that's about 2,600 students. And then when I took a look at the state average for what other districts do when you have similar size, we were about 500 over per pupil. You couple that with the fact that our special education department has added a few new programs, a couple for students with emotional disabilities, a couple of classes for students with more moderate to severe handicaps, and these are areas where nurses play a much more crucial role and spend a lot more time serving students. So you add that into the fact that they're writing individual health plans, 504 plans, and just the fact that in general, health needs are more. You had a presentation about insurance rates today and the Wellness Council talking to you, that just health needs are becoming way more prevalent in the educational setting than they ever were before. So the nurses were essentially taxed beyond what was reasonable to ask of them. And so just after gathering data from other school districts, talking with them as a department, it made a lot of sense to make a request for additional staffing for them so that we could bring down the overall caseload that they're serving, and then take a look at the types of programs that they're serving at each site. So the recommendation that I made to Ms. Rodriguez and to the rest of the cabinet was adding 1 additional nurse in order to allow them to serve the sites that they're at more thoroughly.
Board members? Ms. Limon?
I would support this. I think there's actually a bill. I was looking for the bill right now that's being considered about regarding school nurses. So I think that this makes sense.
Dr. Paz?
Likewise, I mean, I think this is, I love the fact that we're actually coming back to revisit an area where I think many school districts have in the past cut, and not felt that there is a need and I think that this is definitely needed for all the reasons that you're mentioning, plus a lot more that we probably are going to continue to see in terms of increases in need. And so this is just barely touching the surface. We're probably not even close to the average where we're supposed to be. So with the additional nurse, we're going to be closer, but not quite there. So I would totally support this.
Ms. Seidelson?
Likewise.
Me too. I'll just ask about the money piece. And is this already in the draft LCAP, or is this going to be another shift in resources that's going to the LCAP, that's going, from some other area of the LCAP into nursing staff?
This will be on the general fund side, and but it is already, we anticipated that this was a need for a year or so, so we've been kind of keeping this in our pockets ready to support this nurse.
Okay. All right, well then I guess this will come back as an action agenda item.
Could we bring it back on the consent agenda?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is H6, discussion of substitute teacher pay. Dr. Cash?
Thank you very much, Madam President. As board members are aware, substitute teachers are extraordinarily important. We compete with surrounding districts to obtain the best possible substitute teachers. And we felt that we needed to examine our compensation of substitute teachers in relationship to our expectations and the surrounding districts, and that's why this recommendation for an increase is before you.
Great. Can we hear more about the details of it?
Yes, Dr. Christensen.
The pay for substitute teachers has not increased since March 2006. The current rate for our substitute teachers is $105 a day. It's $115 a day for a long-term substitute, and that would be retroactive to their first day of assignment, and then they get $126 a day if they're substituting for a teacher who has an additional period at the secondary level. We did our research, and our district pays the lowest among Montecito Union, Goleta Union, and Hope School Districts, and I can give you those specifics. I have those. So we're proposing a really modest increase to their salary of $5 in each of those areas, from $105 to $110 a day for substitutes, $120 for the long-term sub rate, and for those with an extra period, $131 a day. We have been able to fill our substitutes at a very good percentage, starting in keeping track of that in March, and which is almost 96%. But we do compete with others. They will take those jobs that pay better for the obvious reason. They're going to make more money. And as the year goes on, of course, it gets harder and harder to find substitutes, although we're proud of 95%, 94.59% fill rate. We feel that we could do better if we become more competitive.
Great. And maybe Mr. Tedeschi, if you could put that substitute teacher pay diagram that shows our surrounding school districts up on the screen. You were ready, Mr. Tedeschi. Thank you. Board members, you had a chance to take a look at that. Do you have any comments or questions? So if we go up, you're essentially putting us in line with Goleta Union, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you feel like that's enough?
It's a place to start. I think we need to look at it again, perhaps in another year. That would be my opinion on it.
Okay. Ms. Edelson?
Do many substitute teachers commute from North County? Because in those areas, it looks like it's substantial, like San Ynez being 95, quite a bit less. I just wondered, when you call, how much time is there usually for a teacher to accept and drive
Well, we don't
down?
call anymore. We have the ESEP, which, it's a great question. We have ASEP now, the system that automatically does the calling for us, so we were able to eliminate those positions that called people before, and people are actually able to sign up for jobs, or they can go online and sign up for positions as they appear. So there are a number of ways for them to get to the jobs. We don't see many people commuting from North County, but we see people from the Ventura area coming up to sub for us.
Okay, and now I'm looking for where's Ventura on there? Oxnard?
Ventura County pays $120.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Simone?
I would say that we can bring it forward. I feel like if it makes sense and it's going to increase, hopefully our 94 point, what did you say, something percent? 59% to something a little bit higher. I think it makes sense.
Yes, I've been at a school when the principal had to be the substitute teacher. I know that that happens too often, and it's anything that we can do to make it so that we're more competitive. I absolutely think that we should revisit it in a year, because I'm not convinced that this is enough. But I would support having this come forward on a consent agenda item at our next meeting. Great. Next up is H7, discussion of new courses for San Marcos High School, Marketing Foundations, and Santa Barbara High School. 2 classes, medical chemistry and vocal techniques. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll have Dr. Drotti come forward as our Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education.
Good evening, Governing Board. I would like to invite Mrs. Elise Simmons, the Assistant Principal at Santa Barbara High School, to come present the program.
Good evening. I've brought Ashley Cornelius with me as well. Excuse me, and you may remember her from this time last year when we introduced the course Medical Biology. So I brought her along to help answer any questions for the medical chemistry course. So,
are you ready for questions if we have any right now?
Yes.
Any questions on this? And I didn't see, is there a, I guess I want more details essentially on the pathway. If you want to talk about the pathway and what you see happening in the future.
Yes, we can. So essentially, medical chemistry will be part of the pathway that, so the introductory course for many students is health. All ninth graders have to take health. But also we see them then as their second concentrator course being medical biology or medical chemistry. It also depends on the student and their math level. So they'll take medical biology, medical chemistry with the hope that kinesiology will be part of their possible 11th grade year, with them finishing up with the capstone course of sports medicine.
Okay. And when will you find out if this has D approval on the A to G list?
It's been submitted. It was submitted on May 4th, and the actual deadline for phase 1 is the 31st. So we're hoping that they will get back to us as soon as possible, because we have 2 resubmissions, one of them having to be resubmitted within phase 2, which is ending in July 31st.
Okay.
So hopefully they get back to us as soon as possible.
Ms. Edelson.
I was just looking, did the medical biology gain approval?
Yes, it
Okay,
did.
great.
And we used HAPSB, which is, and I can have Ashley come over and answer more questions about that, but we modeled the medical biology after that curriculum, and same thing with medical chemistry. So we used a lot of what has already been approved and used down in the San Diego schools through the HAPSB program. So we're hoping it will be positive news from UC.
That's great, thank you.
Can you spell out what HASP stands for members of the public?
No, but Ashley can.
I hope so. It's health and something initiative, but they work, it's pipeline initiative, thank you. So it's basically to get students ready for health, becoming nurses and doctors, so that they're ready both educationally, content-wise, as well as just knowing whether or not they want to commit to those programs, so that by the time they get there, they can succeed and they know that they want it. And so they work with health professionals within the school, and it's really tightly aligned together.
So the acronym is HASPI. So if you look that up.
Health and Science Pipeline Initiative.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. That actually is really helpful. All right, that's it for my comments on that. I don't know if you have any others. Is that right? And you have also the
vocal techniques.
Yeah, vocal techniques class.
So Nadia, who is our choral director, is not here tonight because they just got back from a San Francisco trip where they got second place, and they won Spirit of San Francisco, the madrigals and a cappella. So this course, I challenged her. I said something along the lines of, could we do something like Glee, and to get more different students into the choral program? And she promptly gave me a really bad look. And I said, well, can we do something? You know, the objective is to expand the program, to get diversity, to bring in more students. She struggled a lot with getting some freshmen into the program this year. And so she left my office and promptly brainstormed some ideas and came back the next morning with this idea of a vocal techniques course, which is, if you can imagine, we joked about this idea of wanting to be an American Idol. So this is kind of the single student that sings in the shower, or so this course will train. It's individual, but also there'll be some solo, but also partnering, and it's really focusing on helping students with the basics, and with the hope that they could join one of our choir groups or not, just continue in the class and continue perfecting their own technique of singing.
Great. Any questions or concerns? No, sounds great. Thank you.
You want to go over the next one, or if I'd like to invite up Dan Garsky to present the next course.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk about marketing foundations, and that's Marketing Foundations is an introductory level course for our Entrepreneurship Academy. Currently this year we taught Marketing 101 was the name of the introductory course, and that's a dual enrollment course with Santa Barbara City College. And we're going to continue teaching that, but by changing the name of the class and adding to the curriculum, we'll be able to hopefully get A through G credit for Marketing Foundations. The City College Marketing 101 does not have A through G credit. There's enough hours available to us because we have 136 hours. The City College class only takes 56 hours. And so the design of the Marketing Foundations course was based on other pre-existing courses that already have UC A through G credit. So we've submitted the application. We're pretty confident that it's going to get approved.
Comments or questions? Ms. Idelson?
Was that in the G area, or what area of the A to G did you submit it for?
It says on here G.
G, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
As he gets out his glasses. See,
Yeah.
I'm here to help. My question on, well, I mean, it surprises me that City College wouldn't tweak Marketing 101 in a way. I assume it's currently just transferable to the CSUs to make it A to G. So essentially, the students will be taking both courses concurrently that still get dual enrollment credit for it? Or
Correct.
Okay.
So that happens in a number of cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, it looks like an excellent class, and I will. I'm sure you've done the work needed to get a G requirement, a G assessment approval. I guess that's the word that I'm going for. I hope so. I almost would, and maybe this is a question for Dr. Joddy. We've over the past couple of years, every year we have some new courses that are coming forward, and they're always looking for some level of A to G approval. But we always see them at this point when it hasn't been approved yet. I think it would be great to just get a follow-up, at the end of the road, maybe in the fall, just to let us know which ones got A to G approval and which ones didn't.
Absolutely. You'll notice this spring is the first time where we have actually brought in the A through G applications to show you that we do intend to make sure that we fulfill that. So I'll definitely bring back which courses were approved.
Great, thanks. Any other comments on this one? Great, we'll see these on the consent agenda next time then. Thank you so much. Now it's H8, the discussion of the 2014 summer school and ESY, that's the extended school year schedule.
Since we have such a small summer school program, I'm certain this will be a short presentation.
What did you mean by that?
In time, Mr. Handel.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Good evening, members of the board. What you see in front of you as far as the elementary offerings this summer is a combination of a few factors. One is there's a lot of construction going on this summer, a lot of projects that our facilities are trying to get to on sites. Additionally, you'll see lack of funds to support some of the summer schools our sites spending their money in ways that are more strategic. So if you notice, you'll see kindergarten being a focus for a couple of the sites, actually 3 of the sites. Adams, you'll see a kindergarten camp, if you will. You'll also see Franklin doing a pre-kindergarten, which is probably along the same lines of what Adams is doing, and also McKinley doing a pre-kindergarten summer school. Harding is doing something a little innovative. They have partnered with UCSB to offer more enrichment to students who are at grade level or above. They want to offer some of those things to students so that they can get to reach those students who typically don't have an opportunity during the summer to participate in summer school. Those students will be going to UCSB to participate in their summer school activities. And finally, you'll see Monroe was happy to receive the summer fun program from Parks and Rec to have a program on their site that serves the entire community, a drop-in program that you'll see goes from 8 to 5 p.m., which serves a vital need in our community during the summer when parents are working. They now have a place to drop off their students so that they have something constructive and safe to do during the summer. Any questions?
Nothing? Okay, thank you, Mr. Handel.
And we can pull up the secondary schedule. For the secondary schools, what you'll see is a program in which we have a blended model. In the past 2 years, starting last year, in order to be very conservative and able to afford our summer school programs, we have gone in, we have created a system in which, a summer school system in which we use online instruction with teacher support. Last year, we utilized a program called Aventa, and during the year, we discovered that Aventa had 2 problems. It wasn't really engaging for the students. At the same time, it lost its A through G accreditation. So that prompted us to research other programs, and our focus was to find a program that would provide us opportunity to afford the program, at the same time provide A through G credit recovery, and then at the same time be more engaging. This last year, LaQuesta utilized OdysseyWare as a pilot, and we discovered that the students enjoyed it and they were more into the program. So the high school principals and assistant principals got together and went with that. So what you see here is each high school customized the need for their specific sites, in which they will actually utilize staff to help students in the classroom, but the students will be on computers and utilizing the program to access the curriculum. And it's a credit recovery only. Yes, that means that it's for students who have failed the course. Anybody that has a D and above, we wouldn't consider that a credit recovery.
Ms. Limon.
I have a question. You mentioned that each high school customized the classes they're offering. Can you describe that a little bit more? How did they actually determine which classes they were going to offer? Did they look at some information, or did they? I guess I'm thinking of like the high school exit exam.
Yes. So you'll notice in the courses we do offer the California High School Exit Exam opportunities for students to take that class. That is not a blended model system. That's a teacher working with students. Mm-hmm. So all schools have that in place because we have to have that. And secondly, what they look at is who failed courses in the spring and the fall, and make a determination based on that.
So can I assume that the classes that are on there are the most failed classes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Edelson.
I had a question. So do all these courses need to be taken on site, or can they be done remotely in any situation? Like if, say, a student wanted to travel or something like that, would that be something with the OdysseyWare that they could be, they need to be at the high school location?
They do have the opportunity, but with the secondary schools, they wanted to make sure that students were engaged and actually taking the opportunity. Mm-hmm. So they're making sure students come to class. And the only one that's different is the Altair School Independent Study. So it's done through Independent Study walk-in system in which students take their work at home, and then come back and see the teacher and receive a grade.
May I ask, is there an estimate of the number of students district-wide that you anticipate will do summer school?
I can
in
bring
secondary?
that. Yeah, I believe I can bring that to you probably the next board meeting if we want to bring that.
If you just put it into a board brief or just a quick update. Maybe we could just post this information and include the number of students.
Yeah.
Great. And then we have the extended school year.
So our extended school year offerings are just for students where that service is deemed necessary, by the IEP team. We range in terms of the students we serve from kids who have more mild to moderate disabilities all the way to students who have more moderate to severe and/or emotional disabilities. We operate on all the comprehensive high schools, and actually, I apologize, I left off there. We have one transition program that operates out of City College. We combine junior high students to Goleta Valley, and we combine all the elementary students to Monroe. I want to publicly thank Celeste Darga. There's like 9 classes on her campus every summer.
Oh, great. Any questions on that? And that's all of our own teachers, or do we pull in county?
We're usually able to fill all the spots with either teachers who are currently working for the district or actually the students' current classroom teachers.
Okay.
So the best example I could give you is we have 2 classes at Monroe Elementary where we serve students with more moderate to severe handicaps K through 6, and it's broken up K2 and 3-6 during the school year. Those 2 teachers pretty much always teach extended school year. And so a lot of times the kids get to be with the same staff members.
But that's completely their choice, right? I mean,
yes,
they can be taking their summer vacation.
Yep. And ESY is compulsory is not compulsory for the students either. It's a service that we offer if the IEP team determines it's necessary. Otherwise, it's not. Even if we offer it, they don't have to attend.
They don't have to take it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And that leaves us with H9, Child Development Update. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thought it would be good to end the year with how we're going to begin the year next year on our significantly important age group, and that's early childhood education.
I'd like to introduce Michelle Robertson.
Thank you. Good evening, board and fellow administrators. This is my 3rd time presenting to you this school year, so like Dr. Cash said, I'm here to give you a little sneak peek of what's ahead for 14-15. But before I do, I also wanted to acknowledge the Orfalea Foundation because you know them through School Food Initiative, but they've been also a really pivotal player in early childhood in our county. Since the very beginning, they've invested and concentrated in our earliest students, and Adriana Foss, who is their early childhood lead, actually sits in our kindergarten readiness network for the district. So we're very excited to still be partnering with them in many initiatives like the outdoor classroom and preschool food and accreditation and all of that. So thank you to the Orfaleas. Okay, so I'm talking to you about kindergarten readiness, and this is our strategic plan for 14-15, which I promised to bring to you in May, so I'm getting it in just under the wire. And just a reminder that it does say child development, but child development encompasses not just preschool, but after school and the AOK, but I'm here to just talk to you about preschool. So kindergarten readiness, again, as just a little brief description, is about the whole child and their ability to do kindergarten content work when they get there. So we're looking at their cognitive ability, which is pretty much their approaches to learning, that they're socially and emotionally ready. But it also means that we are engaging with our families to help that work to continue at home, and that we're changing our system so that there's a better articulation and transition for our children coming into the program. So I'm talking to you just specifically about our own Santa Barbara School District child development students. So in 13-14, Go to the next slide. Okay. We do 2 assessments each year, one in the fall and one in the spring. And the kindergarten student entrance profile, the KSEP that we talked about in the fall, actually came from indicators and measures that were on the developmental profile that is through the Department of Education. So unlike the KSEP, which has 12 or 13 measures, depending on which version you're doing, the developmental profile through the state has 43 measures. So our teachers do all 43 measures on every single child that we have. So that's a lot of data. So it took me a while to kind of go through it. If you look at our scores in the fall, most of our children were coming in at the exploring and developing stages, meaning they were just in between the 3 and 4-year-old developmental stage. Even our 4-year-olds were coming in pretty low. But by spring, most of our students had progressed to the building and integrating stages, which is very good. That 58.4% were at building and 3.1% were at integrating. Now, integrating is really where we want them to be. And so our goal for going forward is to look at those indicators that need the most effort and to get at least all of our children by the end of 14-15 at the developing stage. But for those 4-year-olds who are going on to TK or K, we really need them at the building or integrating level so that they can be successful. So breaking it down a little bit into the cognitive readiness, the strengths of our program were in the motor skills for our students. Fine motor being, can they hold a pencil? Can they use their pincher grasps? Gross motor, more of their athletic ability, being able to balance. Emergent writing, which is a good one to have. And then their social and emotional skills. In all 5 of those specific areas, all of our kids were at developing or higher, so there was no one at the beginning stage. But interesting enough, 2 areas that continue to, we need to work on are phonological awareness. 180 of our 400 students were still at the developing or below. So that is an area that we really need to work on in preschool. As well as number sense of math operations. Again, 125 students were at developing or below. So our goal in 14-15 is to raise those 2 domains, again, to building or higher by spring assessments. And we know through all of our studies that how they enter in terms of phonological awareness and number sense in kindergarten is going to correlate to 3rd grade scores. So we'll be working on that. So some strategies for improvement. I think you went back and, okay, there you go. Working with the teachers specifically on professional development. We just last week brought in a math expert to start that conversation with our preschool teachers, and then we included all the instructional assistants as well, since they work in small groups. And we will continue to build on the literacy and language focus. Right now, in terms of materials, we are in alignment with the transitional kindergarten, who's also using the Scholastic Big Day curriculum. So whereas the TK teachers are looking at the beginning levels of kindergarten standards, we're doing the end of preschool standards and also looking at what TK is doing so that we're not duplicating for those students who are going to be having both. We're also piloting an early reading program at 3 of our sites called Learning Dynamics, and it's an early reading program out of Utah, and so far it's been super successful. It's kind of a new way of introducing the alphabet and the sounds in a specific order, and then the children receive readers after they've mastered the phonological sounds of those letters, and we have 4-year-olds now that are reading. So we're excited to track them in kindergarten next year and all the way to 3rd grade to see if it made a difference. And then we're really, really striving to do data-driven decision-making. The developmental profiles that I mentioned were all put into Illuminate this year, and gave me a really nice snapshot. And we're also working on our child portfolios and what is useful to our kindergarten and transitional kindergarten teachers in terms of evidence that they need to make decisions for grouping. Children are socially and emotionally ready. Oh, wait, I skipped a slide. In terms of quality for our programs, we are working very closely with First Five, who received a Race to the Top grant. One of, Pedro, you can help me here, 15 counties that received the Race to the Top grant to develop a quality rating system for preschools. And so I actually have a 3-hour meeting with them tomorrow to pick a date for our implementation of the system. We're also pursuing NAEYC accreditation. NAEYC stands for National Association for the Education of Young Children. It's just like a WASC accreditation, but it's for early childhood. Currently, we only have 2 of our preschools in our district that are accredited, and that's McKinley and Early Years. And it's our goal to have 9 more attain the accreditation by 2016. So we've started a leadership group who's attending accreditation learning communities on a monthly basis, and we are picking a timeline for that this month as well. And then as part of our community of schools funding applications to our local foundations, we've asked for a part-time instructional coach that can assist me in working with all of our teachers in learning the new curriculum and raising those phonological awareness and math scores. All right, children are socially and emotionally ready. At 2 of our schools this past year, we've been at McKinley and Harding, we've been implementing a program called Reflective Practice. It's in partnership with CALM and Storyteller, who have developed this model over time. And what it entails is that there are reflective practitioners that come into the classrooms, and they do several roles. One is that they will shadow children who are having challenging behaviors, and they will work directly with that child. Then once a week, they will also meet with the teaching staff to develop strategies and brainstorm how they can work with that child in a more effective manner. Sometimes that includes changing the environment of the classroom or looking inward into their own hot buttons that may be triggered with this child. And then thirdly, they will work directly with the parents of the child so that they can have similar strategies at home, or sometimes there needs to be a more clinical and therapeutic intervention that happens, and so they will help facilitate that. That specific strategy speaks to our targeted indicators of impulse control and self-regulation, which was one of our lowest scoring KSEP items, and students maintaining attention to tasks, which is something we hear from our kindergarten teachers a lot. And a second strategy is that we are purchasing the second step curriculum for social and emotional development, which is commonly used in all of our elementary schools. So this will be a nice articulation strategy with our K through 6. And the outcomes for the reflective practice, I think I already kind of talked about that. For children, it's going to help them regulate their emotions and behaviors. For teacher, it's building their competencies and giving them ideas to utilize. And for parents, that it supports their parenting practices and helps to reduce some of that stress in the home. Next is families are supported and engaged. So for our our state contract, we were required to do a parent survey, satisfaction survey with our parents every single year. And this year, our current families are either very satisfied or satisfied with us. There wasn't anybody who was not satisfied, so that was really nice. But some of their comments were that they would like some more information on finding resources in their community. So we'll be working closer with our family advocates and family resource centers to get that information out better. And also that they would like more interaction with other parents. So they feel like they come in, they drop off their children, they pick up their children, but they don't know anybody else. So in terms of social support and increasing that, we'll be offering at least 4 cultural and family activities at our sites next year, and see if that gets them more engaged and connected. Some of our family engagement opportunities are we have parent advisory councils at each of our sites. In our state preschool program, parents are required to participate 3 hours a month, so that's a kind of hands-on learning. Go to the next slide. Thanks. Parent skill building is a big one, which is usually what we call parent education, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. I talked about the cultural events. We have parent-teacher conferences, and we have committees. So specifically around our parent skill building, we're transitioning from a program that we've been implementing for the last 4 years called Avance, and going towards a new model. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit so it's clear. Both Avance as a curriculum and the new model are really looking at what we call family protective factors. There's 5 specific family protective factors that speak to school readiness. One is that families are resilient, meaning they can bounce back when they're faced with a challenging situation. The other is knowledge of child development, so having clear expectations of where their child should be developmentally and not thinking that they should be doing more and not thinking that they can do less. That they are developing nurturing and attachment with their children. Concrete support is that there is a physical place where they can go and get the help they need, such as food or housing or social services, and then of course social support. So if you just go back one slide. Where Avance did address several of the protective factors, those are still really our focus, and so the curriculum that we are choosing still addresses those protective factors. The challenges with Avance were that there's a very, very rigid model of fidelity, and I've worked with Avance for the last 4 years, not just here but in another school district as well. And Santa Barbara is what we call really rich in assets, but really poor in kind of connection. And so when we were looking at the Avance model, we figured, looking at those protective factors, there were a lot of agencies in town that fulfilled a lot of that. Whereas in San Antonio, Texas, where Avance originated, they don't have as many assets as us. The other challenge with Avance is that it's very, very costly. And as we were looking at going from being pilot sites at McKinley and Harding to really going to district-wide programs, we needed to look at how we were going to sustain that later on. And so that was one of the decisions we made to cancel doing Avance. With the new model, we really rely more on our community partners and what they have in place. So rather than having the school district do everything, we have a lot of people who are already doing really great things with parents. So it's really more packaging it so that it's accessible for parents and that we do our part and they do theirs. Okay. So again, those protective factors, when we look at what Avance really was strong in, it was knowledge of child development, nurturing and attachment, and social support. And with the new model, we can address all 5 of those factors for a lot less dollars. So these are some of our partners in the new model. Family Service Agency runs a program called Nurturing Parent. They also provide all of our family advocates, which do case management for those that need more intensive services. CALM does a program called Great Beginnings and Safe Care, which is both our home visitation models, and those are for our most at-risk families. Santa Barbara County Education Offices, through Health Linkages, does a lot of the nutrition and wellness programming. They do our health fairs every September, and then do parent workshops alongside, like Rethink Your Drink that you heard about earlier tonight. They do Harvest of the Month with the children and the families. A lot of things around health and wellness. United Way partners with us to do literacy activities, just communities in terms of family engagement. We also are partnering with Santa Barbara City College Adult Ed, which is, I feel, still a really untapped asset in our community, especially for parent education. They have an infant and toddler times, and they also have a preschool time, so we'll be utilizing them as well. And then our own programs. So the 2 programs that we're going to be focusing on as a school district are the Latino Literacy Project, which is the curriculum that is replacing Avance. It's still targeted towards infants and toddlers, ages 0 to 2. Instead of it being a 38-week program, it's a 10-week program. So we'll be able to get more cohorts of parents through, and after they've gone through ours, they can merge into one of our partner programs. So they can still have a 30-week curriculum, but with 3 different classes. The main objective is for parents to be their first teacher, and it's really concentrating on language and vocabulary development. So there's a lot of books, a lot of singing. There is some toy making along with it that encourages conversation. And our second one that has been around for quite a while is home instruction for parents of preschool youngsters. It's our HIPPY program. This is really focused for children ages 3 to 5. This is a 30-week program, but what we're doing is we're going to be enhancing it with some of the Latino Literacy Project curriculum. So whereas it concentrated on teaching parents how to do certain activities with your children, there was a lot less group work in terms of building that social support, and so we will be embedding some of the same strategies into this and making it a stronger program. And finally, in terms of our systems improvement, we really want to make more of an effort to align preschool services with the TK through 12 system. So in speaking with several of the principals, many are very eager to have the preschools under their belt, and I am more than happy to share that with them. So one of our goals is that there becomes a preschool on every single elementary campus that is actually supervised by the principal, so that the preschool staff feel like they're part of the school. And then child development would support the principal in terms of meeting licensing and state requirements and helping them through accreditation. There are 3 campuses that wouldn't fit into that model. That would be Las Flores, early years at the high school, and then Franklin Children's Center, because it's just so large and Casey has a lot to do. So we'll be working with the principals on that and what that looks like. Also, we are working very closely with Helen's department and looking at how to integrate more of the preschool special ed services back into our district. And so we are working on a committee that has several of us and looking at what model would be best as we consider bringing some of those services back to us. And we all seem to be on the same page and have the same philosophy, so I'm very optimistic about it. We also need a clear and cleaner transition plan from our own child development program to transitional kindergarten and K. Still, we're working in silos a lot where, we say, oh, kindergarten registration's open, go. Best of luck. But we can do a much better job by sharing orientations with each other. We can be giving parents information on school readiness way before they go to register, and just having some more common strategies with the elementary schools. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Board members, Dr. Paz.
So I love your last slide because I think that's one of the pieces that I've always wanted to see. We need to have that little string, that tracer that goes from pre-K through elementary, because you see the benefits not only in elementary, you see them in the upper grades as well, and research does show that in lots of different ways. So one of the things that I would love to see you come back to the board and talk to the board about is, why is it critical for the first 5 years of life? What foundations does it set up? You started talking about it in terms of the phonological awareness and how it impacts third grade reading scores. Well, there's also the other side of it, which is, learning math concepts at that pre-K age also lead to better reading scores at third grade. Not a lot of people think about that or know that. I think that would be a good thing to talk about at the board level and bring back more information about that, because there's huge impacts that are not often seen. So that would be great, at least for me, to hear more of that.
Yes, will do. Thanks.
One question I had, I know a lot of principals have said over the years to me, why can't I have control of the preschool on my campus? I want to have control. I appreciate the goal of having preschools on every campus. At this point, there's not space for preschools on every campus. Another piece that principals would bring up is they would really love the preschools to be under their supervision, and also for those students to be going to their kindergartens. And I don't know if, I know that sometimes that's just not the way, that's just not where the space is. And, either it's, there's no preschool on your particular campus, or else there may be, but there's not space there, so you're going to be going off to a different school. How much does your department try to work around that, try to get students out of preschool within their attendance boundaries?
So this is the first year that we're really making a concerted effort to have them enrolled in their home school. So if they live in the McKinley area, they are offered a McKinley slot first, regardless if mom works over by Franklin. We want them to build the friendships also with the students that they're going to be going to school with. Los Flores, which is kind of been a catch-all, we found out that most of the children that go there are Monroe and Washington, and since Monroe and Washington don't have preschools, we've now designated Los Flores as the Monroe and Washington preschool site. Roosevelt also doesn't have one, so we're considering early years now as their site. So we're making that effort. The other thing we were doing is there were kids, especially at Cleveland, that were coming down to Franklin Children's Center because that's where the full-day program was. And they get used to Franklin, and they've been making probably a lot of calls to Mitch saying, hey, I want to transfer to Franklin. So working with Dr. White, we're changing our part-day preschool into a full-day program so that those students can go there, and also opening a second preschool. We're doing that at McKinley now and Harding. So there's always a full-day option and a part-day option for families, and that should keep them there at their home site.
Great, that's great to hear. Thank you. All right, Ms. Simone.
Thank you for the presentation. My questions are about the parent programming and the Adelante piece. We have had a lot of parents come to us and talk to us about the program, and I know I'm not the only board member that has heard outside of this boardroom some concerns. So can you describe to me what the partnership looks like? You mentioned that we have them for X amount a week, then we send them off to a different program. Can you describe what that literally means?
So what we're really designing is, I'm calling it kind of parent university, where we're designing a schedule of classes, of parenting classes for our 0 to 5 families. And so we're not going to send them to another place like, oh, you're going to take this class here and then you have to go over to Family Service Agency. We're going to be offering classes at Cleveland, Franklin, Harding, and McKinley. Those are going to be our 4 parent education hubs, and they will just basically be at their campus and cycle through. So they may start with the Latino Literacy Project in the fall, move to Nurturing Parent, and then move to the Health Linkages class if they choose. Or they may start with a Just Communities class and move to this class. So they're going to get all of these choices, but it'll still be on their campus.
So the parents choose which classes they want?
Yes.
All right, and so it sounds like there's different facilitators, so it wouldn't be like there is one facilitator. No. All right, well, that's definitely one of the concerns that I've heard, that, you know, and I want to be careful that in effort to save money, we don't have the quality of program that builds community and leadership. And while this checks off a lot of boxes of good information that's being given, I do worry about how is it going to develop the leaders that we need, because there's something to be said about piecing it together.
Yeah.
So I hope that we're, you know, thinking about that. I wish we would have really communicated this with the parents beforehand, because I don't know that all of our parents are completely informed, and when we as a district don't inform them, then that means somebody else is, and that's definitely something that I think we might have been able to do a better job at.
Yeah, well, they were informed. They were informed in writing and also verbally. I think, though, that with Avance in particular, there's just a really strong connection to it, to the people who have been providing the child care, to the parent educator who's been doing it for a while. Mr. Handela and I have worked really hard on communicating this to the parents.
Well, and I appreciate that. I just, I guess even given the communication, there's still some concerns, and I don't want to, I think their concerns have merit. So I think that their concerns have merit, and that's something that I'm going to be definitely paying attention to.
And I would echo the same concerns. I think that we could do so much, but I think sometimes we need to take that extra step, especially with parents who, many of which their first language is not English, it's Spanish. Many of which, in some cases, hear from their neighbor, hear from their friend, hear from another person, and then fill it in with other pieces of information that go beyond what we've given them. So that's why, you know, you hear from both Ms. Limon and myself talking about this, because I think that we did have the opportunity to hear from parents. We heard, in many cases, the parents themselves filling in pieces of information. We heard this. We also heard this. Some of which is partly true and some of which is not true. And so I think that when we have that, especially with a program that has existed for a while and where we're trying to find something that fills it, and they're so attached to it, we almost have to go out of our way to make sure that they understand that no, it's going to be this, and no, it's going to be that, and don't worry about this, and don't, I understand that we can only go so far, but at the same time, for many parents, this was life-changing for them.
Mm-hmm.
We heard it even at the graduation. So I think that in this particular case, it's not just a program. It was for many parents a very special program that needed to, and perhaps in many ways needed to be treated in another step.
Yeah, and I think the biggest message for our parents too is that we really care about parent education, and it's not something that we are even considering not offering. I think with Avance, when I talk about it was an expensive program, in terms of looking at our district and again, sustainability and being able to replicate it throughout the district, it was not a model that that the district could have paid for ever out of the general fund or even out of LCAP. This was funded by private foundations for the last 4 years, and with working with any private foundations, there's an end point. And so eventually the foundations say, if you think it works, then you need to figure out a way to pay for it. And we were not going to be able to do that with this model. So,
I would chime in on this with the piece that you were talking about parents having some choices.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that concerns me with that, because I think that what you've lined up sounds really good. Parents in Avance are attached to the parent educator, they're attached to the person taking care of their children, but they're also really attached to each other. And so it's about the cohort moving together. And so I'm a little concerned that if you do 10 weeks and then you can have some different choices and you're breaking up the group, that it won't have as powerful an impact as when you learn to network with other parents and to lean on other parents for support. And so that worries me a little bit, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, one of the things with Avance was because there was this range of developmental stages also, that a lot of it had to do with some newborn care stuff, and so the parents of 3-year-olds didn't connect to that information. So we wanted to look for ways that parents could be empowered to ask for what they wanted and needed instead of having a curriculum so prescribed that they couldn't, vary from the script. And so this, we felt this would give them more opportunities to self-select the information that was relevant to them.
Well, it sounds like they'll have the opportunity to go with, newborn parents hanging out and toddler parents hanging out. How many parents do you anticipate being able to go through these on a
So with
yearly basis?
Avance this year, we graduated about 62, and with this new model, going to the 4 schools, we can serve over 450.
Great. All right, well, I know that we'll be monitoring that closely. Ms. Limon?
And the other thing I'd ask is, hopefully in a year, I'd like to see also just parent feedback and comments come back to us. Thank you.
Okay. Great.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to item I, returning to consent items if we needed to, which we don't. J, coming events. We have a lot going on, starting tomorrow with the San Marcos Awards. And that's not starting tomorrow, it's just continuing on tomorrow, and all the way through to the end of the school year. Future agenda items. Not right now. We've heard that at the June 10th meeting, we'll be talking about the LCAP again, and we will be talking about the visual and performing arts draft strategic plan. And that is our next meeting. I will not be here. Mr. Herron will be running the meeting. And with that, if there's no objection from fellow board members, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.